Today I'm speaking with Von Hanshaw and Howard Hanshaw, brothers. Von and Howard, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks
and
for having us.
I appreciate your time. And I wanted to just give a brief bio for Von and then Howard. Von was an ordained Christian, was a Christian for 39 years. He was an ordained Pentecostal minister for 30 of those years. He pastored 4 churches. He was a police chaplain, a prison chaplain. He saw many people who were going through tough times, and he was there to help them even in sometimes their last hours. He wrote 70 books about the Bible. He has several theology and apologetics degrees. He formed the largest Pentecostal prison ministry in Kentucky, had over 300 people working for him in that statewide ministry, doing 1,000 services a year. He had over 4,000 people come to Christ through his prison ministry. He did radio and TV ministries. He preached in tents, camp revivals, crusades, conferences, seminars. He's a musician, plays the piano, guitar, and harmonica, plays the piano by ear, which is pretty cool to hear. He did lots of street ministries. He preached hundreds of sermons. He prayed with people at hundreds of altar calls. And he did get diagnosed with muscular dystrophy at the age of 14. And we're going to go more into his story in a little bit. But Von, could you tell us a little bit more just about what I don't know about you yet for an intro?
Yeah, just for a little correction there, the 4,000 people that came to our altar calls, that was each year.
Oh, wow.
That was each year. So
it's a lot more than that.
So yeah. So not that it matters now, but I mean, then it mattered a little bit.
Right.
But and it did help people. I hope, I hope it did. Whatever. But no, you got covered it all there, and let me make sure I made some notes here to make sure.
Sure.
But I formed what I do now is I work with the Kentucky Nursing Home Watch Bureau. We monitor nursing home abuse throughout the state of Kentucky and neglect, and we go in and do investigations on our part. And also I formed the Free Sex Slaves Foundation. It's a human trafficking organization where we go in and help girls get out of sex trafficking rings here in Kentucky, and really all over America, but primarily here in Kentucky. So if anybody wants to volunteer on any of those things with us, we're always looking for help. If you live here in Kentucky, or the sex trafficking, we'll do that nationwide. So
that's great.
That's about it.
And just in terms of the non-professional side, can you tell us anything about you that we don't know yet? Do you have any hobbies you like to do in your spare time?
Well, I'm a member of a motorcycle organization.
Okay.
And so I hang out with my biker buddies a lot, tattooed guys, and they look mean as hell. But they're good dudes for the most part. I wouldn't cross a few of them. And then I play pool with them and things of that nature. So yeah, just like to do that kind of things. And I like to play poker, take all their money from time to time, and then get out there really quick.
Nice.
But,
yeah. I was just listening to that old, what's that? You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
That's it.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know as much about Howard, so I'm going to just give a smaller bio for Howard, but then fill in the rest of it. The reason is I've been speaking with Von for a while on email, but definitely want to know more about you, Howard, as well. Howard, Von's brother, is a network engineer. He's married with 2 kids and has a German Shepherd. Lives in Kentucky as well. He was a youth pastor, an associate pastor, as well as a head pastor of a church, as well as an evangelist for many years. He was and I should say probably you still are a musician and a singer.
Right. Yeah.
And you do Elvis impersonations. So it's up to you if you feel comfortable. Feel free to add that into your rest of your intro if you want to.
Sure.
Thank you very much. We love our money.
Thank you. No, going along with Vaughn here, we both kind of were tailored to go into the ministry early on, as our father was a head pastor for our entire life.
Free Will Baptist.
Yeah. And so, at a young age, I felt the call around 15 years old. I really felt the calling, the wooing of the Holy Spirit back in that day. And, you kind of follow the lead of your father. And, when I was a young guy, we had just, I'd been in church since I was 5. And so that kind of ushered us into that same pathway. And so, when I was at that age, Vaughn took the call first of the boys. And, then our older brother did, then I followed suit with dad and stuff. So, but besides the ministry part, like I was telling you a little bit earlier, I've always had a niche. Vaughn, you can ask Vaughn, for computers since a young age of like 10 years old. And I've always had just a weird love, for anything computer related, stuff like that. But my hobbies would be, and I don't think this is a hobby because people think I'm nuts. I love fixing computers. I like, as a side thing. And people think that's not a hobby, that's a job. It's a job, but it's just something you love to do.
Yeah.
And so I fix people's computers. I'll fix their network or, whatever tinkering with stuff, just stuff like that. And it's just I guess for a hobby, what is it, man? I'll say this. I used to be a pro. This is off the cuff completely. Vaughn knows this. I used to be a pro Madden player. Madden football. The game you can play. And I was actually a pro Madden player for years. And went on the bus with John Madden and all this stuff. I played, it's been years ago, but that's something I think is funny that people might not know about me.
Very cool. So do we get an Elvis impression today?
Oh, yeah, sure. We could do, thank you very much.
Nice.
Now, your viewers might find this interesting. Howard touched on this. Our dad was a police officer.
Right.
Plus a pastor after he was a police officer. Free Will Baptist. And then our older brother, he's deceased now. He also had the muscular dystrophy. Howard doesn't.
Right.
So two of the three of us had it. He was also a Pentecostal minister ordained through Jimmy Swaggart ministry. Wow. And that's where me and Howard went to one of the Bible colleges we went to was Jimmy Swaggart.
We went to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College, yeah.
So
yeah, I remember I was young at the time that was kind of all falling apart, but I remember seeing that in the news of his the end of his ministry.
He greatly swayed, and I can say this, I can't speak for Vaughn, but he heavily influenced a lot of the ignorance that I fell under. Because I was so young and ignorant, I said, I'm not going to call it ignorance, but you know what I mean? When you don't know better, you kind of attach yourself to somebody, and then you follow their lead, so to speak. And, Jimmy Swaggart was off the rails, man. The guy was just a wild maniac. And, the older me and Vaughn talk about this all the time, the older we get, we look back at that and we're like, how did we sit underneath that and call that God,
Yeah.
And the way I think we did it, looking back on that 30 years ago, was the emotionalism.
The emotion,
in that branch of Christianity. And we were young teenage boys, you know, and we were dedicated to God.
Right.
We really were. And that energy, that electricity,
the emotion
pulled us in.
Because all that shouting, all that running, all that hoopling and clapping, and
all that adrenaline
rush, it just appealed to me. It appealed to me like going to I mean, if I talk about it to this day, it's like if you've been to a Garth Brooks concert or a Kiss or any concert that, you feel the goosebumps.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're clapping and, cheering, and well, you're doing that for Jesus.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I'm getting this because you feel it. I tell people, if you've never been to a Pentecostal church, I wouldn't do it now. But I used to tell people, do yourself a favor because it's unlike anything you've ever been to in your life. Because, it's something about the atmosphere alone. It literally used to set me on fire. Literally.
You could feel it.
Yeah, you could literally. It was just one of the craziest.
It's tangible.
As soon as this man right here sitting next to me would rip a chord on the piano, a G chord, the whole church would explode. You see people running, jumping, literally hopping pews in the name of God, and you just take her out with them. You'd be sitting there, and it was like a circus, man.
Yeah.
But you thought it was the Spirit of God.
The anointing.
The anointing.
And if that didn't happen,
oh yeah,
like every time.
Yeah.
It's like
you felt like you had sinned.
Right.
You felt like you had done something
you not prayed enough.
Right. You hadn't prayed. You hadn't read your Bible enough.
Sin in your life.
Yes.
Something.
Yes.
Something was off.
I want to. It's awesome as an intro. I want to go back to that in just a couple minutes. But could I also ask? Could you take us back just a few steps? You mentioned your dad was a police officer, and Vaughn, I'm aware of a little bit of the story from your videos. But could you tell us a little bit more about like what his part in this was, and what and your mom as well? What was it like growing up? What was the dynamic in your home, especially on the spiritual level? And could you also, just as you're describing that, maybe bring in what were the main tenets that you were taught. I know that for people like myself, if you say Free Will Baptist, I know exactly what you guys probably were taught.
Right.
But there's people that might be watching that might not know all that. And if you could also just, talk about what the gospel was to you. What did that mean when you get to that point in the story?
Sure. You want me to go first or how?
Either one.
You got it.
Okay. So our dad was a Navy veteran. He spent 5 years in the Navy after he got out of high school. And he worked a few jobs before he was a police officer. And then he went to the post office. And he was a musician as well. It runs on both sides of our family. Played lead guitar in a rockabilly band. So all that, played in bars and all that. Got paid good money back in the late 60s, early 70s for picking on that guitar. And so he drank a lot.
Yeah.
When I was born in 70, he was born in 72. Our dad was a functioning alcoholic.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Fair to say. And he was a very violent individual. And he beat me, Howard, my older brother William, my mother, his mother who lived next door.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a movie that we've seen that can touch
No.
what we lived through, the abuse.
Right.
He would shoot his guns at us.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I remember 2 or 3 years old,
Yeah.
dodging bullets. That's why when I grew up, I wasn't afraid of anything.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've been shot at since I've
Absolutely.
been a kid, you know what I mean?
No joke.
And he would pick us up by the hair of our head, throw us through doors and windows, and kick us and beat us. And just, it's a wonder we were not dead just through all that. But anyway, he went to church, this little old preacher, Southern Baptist preacher, came to our house. I was little. I was like 4.
Yeah.
Real little. And Roy McGuffey was his name. And he pastored the little church down the road from us. And somebody had told him about my dad drinking and being mean to us and whatnot. So my dad shot at him.
Right.
Said, I don't want you back around me no more. So if you come back here, you're going to be dead. And the little guy kept coming back.
Sure did.
And he wouldn't give up. So my dad finally went to church. And this is the part that me and Howard talks about this.
Yeah.
Kind of trips us up a little bit. Because I've seen this in other people's lives.
It does.
My dad stopped drinking, smoking, cursing, barroom fighting, playing the nightclubs, the music overnight. December 31st, 1975.
Cold turkey.
Cold turkey. I remember vividly going in the kitchen with him that night, him pouring all of his bottles of whiskey down the sink, throwing his cigarettes in the trash, hugging us, saying we got a new daddy and all of that.
Yeah, I sure do.
The man went off to Bible college that next fall of 76.
76.
When, I mean, he was 38 years old.
Yeah.
Graduated from 3 seminaries with honors.
Yes, sir.
Smart dude, you know. At 42 years old and pastored 7 churches
7 churches.
before he died. He never touched alcohol, cigarettes. He never cursed. He never stepped inside a bar again.
Not again. Never.
His life, for whatever reason, I don't know why.
Radically changed.
We talk about this. And I've seen this done in other people's lives.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a strong willpower. Maybe he was afraid my mom was going to leave him for the last time because she kept on leaving him.
Right.
I don't know what it is. But whatever it was made him do a 180.
Sure did.
I mean, he never was the same person again. So he went off to college, Bible college, became a pastor. And then we were taught, the 16 fundamental doctrines that I call them.
Right.
Is Jesus is the Son of God, born of a virgin. The Bible is the infallible, inerrant word of Almighty God. There's no errors in it.
Right.
It's the final truth and authority on life and living. The Holy Spirit is there to help us, to comfort us. All those doctrines about God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, the Word of God, about human relations, all of that we were taught.
Right.
Basic fundamental doctrines.
That first part of your story, that's quite a ride with your dad's.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
That's crazy.
I think people don't really understand, and we don't really convey this, me and Vaughn. We kind of keep this amongst ourselves because I was embarrassed. It's embarrassing to tell your buddies, your friends, especially in church. The older I got, the kind of I understood it helped people. He kind of been in our shoes. So I thought, I'm going to use this as a testimony. you know, of what we come out of. I thought, you know, people can relate. But when I was little, man, I was so embarrassed because, you know, we got the brakes beat off us. I mean, on a daily, I mean, literally, I mean, if that man come in a bad mood, the whole house got cleared. I mean, that man would throw you through a wall.
And he was a big guy too.
Big old boy, big man.
Little dude.
Yeah. But my deal, my greatest recollection of my dad, and I mean, I'm going to talk about this a lot, to kind of throw in what he was saying, is when the man, and I call it when he transformed. Because I mean, it was such a, I mean, my little mind at 5 was just like, hold on, where did he go?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, well, where did he go? Because I mean, we were scared to death of the man. I mean, I would sit and shake, knowing he was coming home from work.
Right.
We would go hide under our beds.
Right.
We'd hide under our beds. When we heard that door slam, my mama's head would go into the counter or into a cabinet. Where's my blankety blank food? Where's my damn food at?
Right.
I told you to have my supper ready. You know, just going off.
Right.
Well, he comes in one day and hugs and kisses her, and I'm like, who's in my mind? I'm like, who's this guy?
Right.
Comes over and puts both of us on his lap, hugging us and squeezing us, and I'm like, I never felt that. I mean, this is no joke. It gives me chills to this day.
Right.
Because I never felt that love. I mean, I thought my daddy hated my guts.
And he wouldn't allow our mother to hold us either.
Yeah, we were not allowed to have any interaction with our mom. Our mom could never hug us,
Right.
kiss us, say she loved us, because he was so jealous.
Right.
He would punch her, literally punch her, fist punch her, if she ever showed any affection toward me or any of our brothers.
Right.
I mean, I've seen her. This is, I can attest to this. We would be sitting around the table eating food. She would reach over and get us like whatever. He would take the plate and show it right in the face because she showed us. He thought that was showing us affection.
Right.
I mean, it was just that. People don't understand what we're. And then to be crazy, not to really go on this, but the man was so wild and out of control that he would starve us purposely. He would sit down and eat a porterhouse steak, baked potatoes, 12 rolls, and a salad. What we had, this is no joke, Vaughn can attest this. We would get 4 saltine crackers and a little bitty thing of cheese. Right. And he'd make us sit in front of him, and he would eat that whole meal, telling us how good it tasted, how awesome it was. And we would sit and starve crying. We would cry because my stomach burnt so bad I was so hungry. If it wasn't for school food, God hears every word I'm saying. If it wasn't for the school food, we'd have starved. I think we'd have starved.
And if we showed emotions like that, we got beat.
Oh, we got beat. Yeah, the brakes off.
We weren't allowed to show any kind of emotion.
And so you were, Howard, you were about 5 when he came to become a Christian?
Yeah, and so off that, like Vaughn said, when I saw my dad change, I think the greatest thing that really hit me is this is, and again, when you see that kind of change, you're like, you don't know what shelf to put it on. You know what I mean? You don't know where to put that. Because you're like, is he going to go back? Is he going to be this way? And, you know, like Vaughn said, he never cursed. He never hit nobody. He never drank no more. He didn't smoke. I mean, it was like, it was weird because then we started having family communions. We read the Bible every night from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. That's why we have such a great.
We was 18 years old.
That's why we have such a great Bible base. I mean, I tell people we can quote verses. I mean, upon verses, and because my dad was a living, walking Bible scholar.
He learned it well.
I mean, he can quote Greek and Hebrew like we're talking right here, man.
Right.
And we would pray. Taught us how to pray. I mean, we had a family altar. I mean, and that instilled in us growing up. You know what I mean? I guess the faith to where we were before we deconverted.
And I think coming out of that traumatic childhood,
right,
that even reinforced our faith.
Yes.
Because we saw the change.
We saw the change, yes.
We're like, wow.
If God can do that, he can do anything.
Right.
Because, we saw an animal. We saw a literal animal.
Out of control.
Out of control, ready to just to pounce and beat the brakes off of you. I mean, any given, we've been I did not eat. He had bought us, Vaughn knows the story. I was like 7 years old. I hate to keep going on about this, but there's a point to what we're saying. He got us all, he never got us treats. This man knows this. He went out and bought a box of Suzy Q's. That was his favorite, little snack.
The cakes, yeah.
I didn't like them. He thought I disrespected him. This how I remember this?
Yeah.
He snatched me out of my top bunk, plumb off the floor, and I fell to the floor, and he stomped my guts out. And shoved the Suzy Q down my throat, and my mom had to peel it out with her finger. I almost choked to death.
Yeah.
I was choking to death.
Right.
He walks off like nothing. I would have died. I mean, I promise you, I would have died. And you see that part to that extreme,
Right.
to somebody that's now hugging you and loving you, talking about this God that you have no idea about, and you're like, do what?
Right.
Who is this guy? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'd
And
imagine it would
like,
take
that
a while
is-
to get used to that. Like you'd almost be like cringing,
Yeah, yes.
And it's,
Yes.
I've got to say too, I can see too how you all, I love how you all almost can read each other's like next sentences.
Yes.
You all are, I can tell you're obviously brothers and you're
Right.
close and you've had the same experiences, but it's really cool to see how you all know each other's stories before, like one word and you know where the other's going with it.
Yes.
Well, it makes me think of a couple of things, and then I want to have you go into the next step of this. But number one, obviously, we all know that mantra: "You hurt people." So obviously, he went through some stuff, and we won't try to pick apart his life story at this point. But obviously, he went through some really rough stuff, and I'm sorry that he didn't stop it earlier enough to make a difference. But it's awesome that it did stop at some point. But it also brings up this question of, I think a lot of Christians, even if Christians were watching this, they would say, see, there's power. God, the gospel has power to change lives. And I think you're going to get to that at some point, but I do want to at least make sure we come back to that before the interview's over, about how you thought through that, as you deconverted later. But anyway, what happened next in that story at that point? So he's become a graduate of Bible college. He's got his degrees. He's a Bible scholar. He's now becoming a pastor. What happens next in the story?
Okay, I get saved first.
Right.
In May of 1978 at his church.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I thought the world of him now. This is a man that I can look up to now.
Yep.
So it was Vacation Bible School. He invited this big group in from Carolina on this big bus. And we had bonfires every night and games and all this. And I was 8 years old. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was fun, making all the little crafts and all that stuff. And we were sitting around a bonfire one night, and they sang a song on the guitar. It only takes a spark to get a little fire going.
Yeah.
That song, I don't know why, it captured me.
Yeah.
And I went to the church, the altar, the next Saturday night. That next Sunday morning, I was sitting there, and my dad was up preaching. I don't know what about, don't remember. But I started crying like really hard.
I remember.
Really hard. I ran to the altar.
Yeah.
Ran. And I got on my knees, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that they'd said, ask God to forgive you. That's what I did at 8 years old. It was legitimate. It was like a real thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't like something you'd
It was like an altar call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. There was me and an old man at the altar. He was on that end. I was over here. And that, whatever happened, put me on that path for the next 39 years.
Yes, yeah.
And Howard, what was when did you come to know the Lord?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you still had one. Let's see. It was in 1986. I was 14 years old. And again, this is crazy. My oldest brother, William, had come in after Vaughn did, shortly after Vaughn. It was maybe a couple years, was William a little bit older?
Yeah.
William a little bit older.
He was in college.
He was in college. And so he had turned us, William, our oldest brother, is the guy who had turned us on to Jimmy Swaggart, to be truthful. And he turned the whole family on to him. William had heard him in college. He'd come home and say, hey, y'all need to watch this guy. He's phenomenal. He's, whatever. So I started watching him with my dad. We'd watch him on Saturday nights or Friday nights or whatever. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I've told on this story 100 times. And we laugh about it now. Jimmy Swaggart took his finger, pointed in the camera. He said, you can outrun me, but you'll never outrun God. And the finger, and it just hit me. I'm like, like Vaughn said, I don't know what it was, but it just, boom, it hit me. I thought, and I started crying. Tears were flowing down my face. And so
that'll preach. That's like the
yes.
prodigal son. That'll preach real good.
Yes. And it just, my heart, man. Because I was Vaughn used to talk to me all the time. Man, you need to, you need to get saved. And he knows I was mean. I was very mean to him. And anybody that was a Christian from like 10 to 14, I was just very, very hard. Right. And because I kind of turned the other way, and I was kind of running away from God at that point, and I'd make fun of them and make fun of Christians and all that stuff as a teenager because I was being rebellious. But when that hit me, I knelt down at my bed in my room, and I just cried out. I said, Lord, if you're real, I said, if you're real, I said, I ask you to forgive me and save me. And I literally felt the heat. People tell, you hear this story all the time. I felt heat from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. And I thought, man, I never felt that before. I thought, man, that's crazy. And so, I went and talked to Vaughn, and Vaughn got me this remember you got me a little bitty Bible, he got me a little bitty blue Bible.
Yeah.
I still got it to this day. And I just started reading it. And, one thing after the other, a year later at 15, we were going to a certain church. I met a guy named Dean Strong who kind of got us an opportunity to preach.
Right.
I felt the call about midway at the age of 14. And by 15, me and him, Vaughn had already preached. But I had gotten my first call, and I thought, man, this thing's taking off. And I felt it because, what's the odds of you meeting somebody that had a church that's looking for preachers at your middle school? I was in middle school. He said, oh, yeah, y'all come over and be part of our youth group, and I want y'all to, get up and speak. And I'm like, are you kidding? I went home and told Vaughn, and we were ecstatic, So, that's kind of my story of where, how that transpired, but it was just wild, man.
Yeah.
We were teenage preachers, brothers.
Yeah.
And we were not, I found a flyer the other day on the internet there that we were out preaching years ago. They called us the Thunder Brothers.
That was our nickname.
That was our nickname.
Yep.
And so
it was crazy.
We could look in the Gospels. There was brothers in there called the Sons of Thunder. Right?
Sons of Thunder. That was our nickname.
Sons of Bar Jonas.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Very few people know that that's straight out of Greek mythology. But
Yeah.
I did want to just mention a couple things too here, and then go into the next step of your story. Number one, you're bringing up a really good aspect and dynamic of this, that a lot of times what happens with these stories is that people are invited to, for sure, give their lives to this worldview, to this belief, to Christ and to the gospel. You're invited to give your life to it early, without enough knowledge of the world to know whether or not how to slice and dice it and know what's real and what's mythology.
Right.
But then the ministry part of it is very clear too, where it's like, you get invited very early on. I did too. Lots of ministries, lots of missions, and not just little side stuff like soup kitchens where you're kind of quiet in the corner doing your little stuff, but to get up there and preach. And I remember doing that as a young teenager, preaching to lots of people myself. And it didn't balloon into some kind of huge pastoral ministry, but I remember just loving it. And it's very thrilling, number one, because you have a captive audience. And it gives you this sense of like, I have something important to say.
Yes.
And it builds you up. And I remember, especially when a lot of preaching to homeless people in the soup kitchens, where you kind of get them locked in, where they know they can't get their soup and their bread until they sit for 20 minutes to listen to your sermon, which is always pretty much the same thing, because that a lot of them are struggling and maybe in danger of dying. So it's like, get to the gospel. This is not about living a good Christian life. This is like, you got to get saved. So gospel. And you just feel like you've got this power of life and death in your hands, and you're giving it to them. And it builds you up. And it's funny though, you never get this message of Christians, older Christians, saying, maybe you don't know enough about life yet to be saying what you're saying. And I remember the first time this really came to a head for me was when I was in Bible college. I went to Lancaster Bible College in central Pennsylvania to be a minister. And there were other guys around me, 20, 21, getting finished with their degrees and getting geared up to become pastors at 21. Right. And I was reading through the pastoral epistles, 1st and 2nd Timothy and so forth, and Titus, and getting the sense that you're supposed to be an older man. It says you have to have raised children, in the sense of like, if you can raise a small family, then you can take care of raising a bigger family, but don't try to tackle 200 people if you can't raise 2 people or 3 people. Well, so I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be a pastor at 21, but it was the first trigger for me of like saying, maybe there's some things here that we need to figure out, as to like, maybe you shouldn't be doing stuff and saying stuff until you know what's going on in the world, till you have enough knowledge of just what it means to exist and how things work and what wisdom looks like. But it's still, that wasn't enough to deconvert me by any stretch. It wasn't even part of it. But it's like, now that you're talking about your story, it makes it really shine to me. Like, we put stuff on people, on kids especially, and we do not tell them that there are thousands of other gods that technically could be right. We don't tell them there's other views. We don't tell them there's people that don't believe in God. We don't tell them about the science. And it's really sad how, we just, it's indoctrination. Really. It's brainwashing.
You ever notice, let me interject just 1 second. As me and Vaughn's talking, we've talked about what you're saying right there. We use the word, and Vaughn used to actually coin this word in a lot of his videos, I know you can attest to this because I can tell what you're saying. Christians, and me and Vaughn, man, we're the biggest, we're guilty of this, and I believe you are too. We were all brainwashed. As a young child, when you're brought into the church, as our father did, you go through your Sunday schools, you go through your early church, with your teens, then you go to the adult Sunday school, then you're there with the main preacher. Like you said, you're indoctrinated at such a young age. Oh, if you speak against the Bible, you're going to go to hell. That immediately causes you like, oh my goodness, if you blaspheme the Holy Spirit, you're going straight to hell. And it just puts fear in you.
Yeah.
That puts fear in everybody's heart to where you're like, man, you say anything against God or anything against that Bible, and it just brainwashes you. You're like, man, now looking back on that we're on the other side, it's scary. And I use the word cult, that we were in a cult because they use the fear tactics to keep you in that cult. Because without those fear tactics, people's eyes, I believe, would be opened.
Yeah.
Because you can't speak against God. You can't speak against his word. You can't say anything negative, or like you said earlier, you can't talk about other gods or other mythological things that we know took place. And people are like, oh my God, Brother Hanshaw, you say that, you're going to go straight to hell. And I'm like, you know what I mean? You can't question the source is what I'm trying to say.
And then getting back to the AIDS thing where your preachers out preaching. We talked about this.
Yeah.
We had no business out preaching to that age.
Oh, no.
None.
No.
Yeah. That's the best way to say it. I love how you just said that. Say it again real loud.
We had no business out preaching as teenagers.
Amen.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said that better. That's it. That's and it's really sick that people like. Did you ever see there's an old clip that goes around from I think it might have been on Oprah way back, where it's like a little boy
screaming. Yes.
Yeah. Screaming. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And they questioned the little guy, and his daddy had to speak up for him. He didn't know what to say.
Had no clue. He was like a little robot, just screaming and shouting, and you're like, and that's how it was. They give a little kid a verse, and he just starts barking, and you're like, oh my God.
If you got a little bit of charisma about you,
that's it. Yeah.
And you can articulate fairly well, and you got a quick mind, you can pick up on things.
Yeah.
They'll hand you a microphone and it's on.
Okay.
Yeah, and be extremely proud of you. And that's the other part of it is the pride issue.
Yeah.
I don't mean like pride as opposed to humility, just this sense of like, I'm doing something valuable for eternity. Where I know for me, the big pressure was, I heard this many times, this sense of like, look, there's people dying and going to hell. And they wouldn't necessarily be like attacking the people in the audience, but they'd be like, look, you're focused on your job. You want to get your house and your white picket fence and your 2 or 3 cars, take your vacation every year. Like, people are dying and going to hell. And the Lord says in Isaiah, who will go for us? Like, won't you step up to the plate? Right. And of course, if you're a sensitive person to the Lord and the leading of the Holy Spirit, you're going to be like, of course, sign me up. I want to do it. Like this picture of the best life possible, the very best life is either, at least for men in that worldview, the best life is you're a pastor expounding the word of God and directly preaching the gospel, or you're a missionary going to the lost. If you can attain to one of those 2 paths, then you basically you're in the best life possible. There is no higher calling. And of course, for women in that culture, the best life is to be supporting your man who's doing that, and to be doing it in your ladies groups and stuff. But I did want to ask, we keep talking about the word gospel. For anyone that doesn't know what that word means, could you all and you can tag team on this again, but what does the gospel mean to someone growing up in your church?
The gospel meant the word of God, the infallible, inspired, God-breathed word of God, which provides the way of salvation, the way of sanctification, and the way to heaven through Jesus Christ only. Mm-hmm. No other way. Right. There's no other way. John 14:6, Acts 4:12, John 10:1, Revelation 20:11-15, John 6:44. All those verses states that basically that Jesus is the only way to heaven. There's no other way.
Right.
That's basically the gospel, what he did, what he accomplished, and his death, burial, resurrection on the cross and at the tomb.
Right.
And Howard, could you paint that as well in the sense of the bad news, good news way we present it?
Yeah. I used to tell people this. John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I used to tell people in my churches, I said, you need to be a living testament. And what does that mean is, according to the gospel, you need to go out to all, as Jesus said, the Great Commission. Go into all the world and teach and preach the gospel to all people. And, the Great Commission, and, I'll live by that statement because of our Father. He taught us that, at an early age, to spread the gospel. So our whole mission as young guys, when I say the gospel, and I'm glad Vaughn touched on this a second ago, we used to be, we can't tell people this enough, we would blanket areas of our churches. Beat doors down for hours, for days, for years. And that's where our churches thrived. Our churches, this is no joke.
Our dad taught us how to do it.
Yes. We would go into it. Like, I'll give you an example of one of my churches over the gospel. I walked into a church with 6 people. And I prayed and asked the Lord, what do we do? And again, this has to do with the gospel, sharing the good news. Within 6 months, this man can attest, I had 111 people coming. Within 2 years, there was 170. It was because you're sharing the good. You see, because I felt it was my duty to spread the gospel. I thought I took on the Great Commission. I took on the call as being a pastor, a preacher, a saved person to spread the gospel. So I thought to myself, what other way to do that than to get out in your community and share it with others? And, like Vaughn said, our daddy, dad rest his soul, he laid the groundwork, man. The man was the greatest soul winner I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That man never knew a stranger. Vaughn knows this. We went to a church at Highlands Baptist Church, one of the biggest churches in Kentucky. I think there was like 40 people going to that church when Dad took over. 650 on the roster when the man retired. Now that's unheard of. You just don't do that.
Right.
It's just the way it is here in Kentucky. It's crazy. You don't get that kind of growth rate. But that man, he could share. And the thing about Dad was, he wouldn't drive Jesus down your throat. He'd walk in, and this is how we learned how to witness.
Right.
He would talk, hey, how are you doing? How was your day? How's your kids? How's your wife? You know what I mean? Then he would gently break in the gospel on you. And then hey, Brother Hanshaw, thanks for coming over. Next Sunday, they'd be in our church.
Right.
It's just crazy. When you learn that as a young guy, you say, hey, that works. Yeah. I'm going to use that principle. And man, it's crazy.
Right.
That's how. Yeah.
It's amazing, the stories. I relate to a lot of what you're saying. You mentioned the phrase soul winning, and that was a big deal. I went to Bob Jones University for my freshman year of college. You know Bob Jones?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was in the subsection of all the students called the Preacher Boys. And boy, the sense of we got to be soul winners. So you got to bring them in the kingdom. There's nothing better. There's nothing more important. Anything else is so far secondary. And just to before we go into the next part of this, just to kind of nail home what you were talking about with the gospel, it's the idea that there's a sin issue. Like you're right. It's the idea of Jesus is the way, but the reason he even needs to be the way is because we are separated, as if there's a gulf between, if God's here and hell's here and we're here, and there's no way to get over, and there needs to be a bridge. And that our sins do make us fall short of God's glory, and that none of us, even in our best righteousness, anything good we do is like a filthy rag to God. Right. And so therefore we need someone to stand in our place, in our stead, and that Jesus takes our place. He takes our punishment. He becomes our atonement and our propitiation in that sense. He becomes sin for us, and we become his righteousness and before God, so that God can literally stand. Like when we die, we could stand before God and God would say, why should I let you into heaven? And we would have to say, I have nothing I can offer, but Christ's righteousness covers me. I am covered. I'm in Christ. And therefore, I am righteous, not in and of myself, but through him. He gave it to me as a free gift by grace. And when you trust that and you say, yes, I repent, I turn from my sins, I turn to God. God says, I take your faith and I will attribute righteousness to you, even though you're not a righteous person, simply through your faith. That for people that are like your dad, who've gone through some rough stuff. They've made some really nasty choices, or they've really been heartbroken. Maybe they've been good people, but they're just heartbroken. Stuff's not going well. Life's really painful. And it feels like you don't fit in life. Life isn't working for you. Life's not working the way you hoped it would be. It's certainly not a dream life. And it's in some ways, it's almost like a living nightmare. And then you get this message of there is a God up in heaven who loves you to the nth degree. He does technically start hating you, but he hates you at first in the sense that he truly is going to judge you. And if you don't turn to him, you will get punished. But at the same time, he loves you so much. He has a plan for you. Talk about the attraction. Like, what does that do to people? You've seen, we talk about altar calls. You've seen altar calls. You've probably done them. What does it do to people when they hear your life can be completely transformed by the power of God?
That's the ticket. That's the way I would do it. And
Right.
You too, I'm assuming.
Right.
During our altar calls.
Yeah.
But I would not paint, personally, I would not paint a pretty picture with a broad brush. Let me explain that real quick.
Yeah.
I would use the 10 Commandments as an example. And like when I was in the penitentiary preaching, I would say, let's say that you all were standing before a judge. You're guilty of murder. There's 10 eyewitnesses that saw you murder and kill that guy, right? You can't get out of it. You know you're guilty. They know you're guilty. All the evidence supports you're guilty of killing that man. There's no way out of that. And so there you are standing cuffed before the judge. He's about ready to lower the hammer down and sentence you to the electric chair,
Right.
death row. You're going to die because you maliciously first degree murdered that individual with intent and purpose and forethought, all that premeditated. So you're guilty. And then all of a sudden, right before the judge lowers that hammer down, you hear someone in the back say, wait a minute, stop. I'm going to take his place.
Right.
And you don't know the voice. You're looking back saying, who the hell's that? And so it's the judge's own son. He
Yep.
comes up, tells the bailiff, put the cuffs on me. You're free to go. Go and sin no more, kind of thing.
Right.
All right. And so that's what I would do. And I would let them know that serving God is not an easy
Right. That's
pathway. It's
Right.
not, I'm in a wheelchair all the time with as much for this.
Right.
So they knew that. And so people see me and they knew. And so I wouldn't tell them, you know, if you meet Jesus, all your problems are going to go away
Right.
and you're going to live happily ever after and you're going to get all the money and the riches and the wealth and the cars and the mansions and the pretty, you're not going to, it's not going to happen. It's going to be a battle. You're going to have to endure. You're going to have to fight every inch of the way. It's an uphill battle.
Right.
A lot of preachers that I knew, most preachers that I knew,
Yes, sir.
I was Assemblies of God, and then I was Pentecostal Church of God for a long time. And those Pentecostal circles I roamed in, a lot of those preachers and pastors and evangelists and missionaries and whatnot would paint them a picture.
Yeah.
If they meet Jesus, all their problems are going to vanish.
Yeah.
I never would do that.
No.
I'd say the gospel is a balanced gospel.
Right.
It has its good and bad.
Hmm.
But my theory was Jesus will help you through the bad.
Right. Right.
We're all going to go through shit,
Right.
but Jesus will help you through that shit.
Right.
Of course, I didn't say that down, but I'm telling you now, it's what I would say.
So
that's
Joel Osteen wouldn't have been
Oh.
too comfortable in your church.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Joel. Yeah, I like Joel now, though. He's pretty good now.
But in terms of your next steps, I know you all talked earlier, we did this in the intro, about how you were preachers, you were evangelists, you did prison ministries and
Yeah.
chaplain ministries, lots of ministries, street ministries, using your musical talents, all that, radio and TV ministries. I mean, you all have been doing a lot of stuff.
Very active.
When you look back at that at this point, how do you do, like, does it feel like you were tricking people?
All right.
Do you feel like, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I just want to touch on that before I forget. Does it pain you to think about being involved in all this?
All right, I'll take this one first for the first round. I'll let him go after this. We kind of go on the same thing. I feel on a daily, this is weird. I mean, I'm going to be level honest here. I feel lost a lot because we had such a rigorous schedule on a daily basis of what we knew we did. for the Lord. When that's taken away, and I feel like the rug's been taken from out underneath me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm trying to find something, trying to find where my path, where I fit at. I'm still doing that right now. No lie. I'm trying to figure out what is this all about? I look back on this man did way more than I did. But what I did, I was with the Church of God Mountain Assembly is who I was with for many years. That's who I was ordained with. I hope in some small way, because, I tell people the Bible's a good book. It really is. It's a great roadmap. Inside that are some really good gems. There's some really good things to live by in that book, but it's just a book. It ain't God's word. It's not the inerrant, living word of God as I used to preach it. It's not the infallible, inscribed word of God as I used to say. But it is, people say, well, brother, why can't we you can live by it. I mean, if you really feel, convicted that much, I'm not going to tell somebody not to do it. Because, there's a lot of good in that book. It's better than, I guess, picking up something that's, full of malarkey, a bunch of garbage. But I wished I wouldn't have wasted a lot of my years. I guess that's what you're asking me. I wish I wouldn't have wasted a lot of my life following a lie, because I look at that as a lie. I preached a lie. I told people about a lie. Me and this man right here I'll say this, and I'm not bragging, not boasting. You're looking at two men right here that lived at 100. I knew a lot of preachers that never lived it. Sunday they walked up, raising hands, shaking. Monday through Saturday, they were everything but that.
Right.
Yeah.
These two right here sitting in front of you, brother, we lived at 100. If you knew us, people, and again, I'll say that because I feel like I paid the price.
Yeah.
We sacrificed a lot to do what we did. And it hurts me, truthfully, because it's like, I feel like I hate lie. I don't lie. I don't like to lie. You know what I mean? I don't like to feel like that a lot of my life, 14 years of my life, that I just did something. And again, was it out of ignorance? You know what I mean? Was that something out of ignorance because I didn't know better at that time? I just followed something that I saw my dad do. I saw my brother do. And I thought, hey, man, if it's changing their life, it's going to change my life.
Yeah.
But like you said, looking back, I hope in some small way that it did help someone to understand. I tried to convey what I thought was the truth. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
Even
I
though
would
now
that as well.
I know that it was just not. It's nothing but a lie.
It wasn't like we were intentionally trying to be charlatans or hurt
exactly.
people.
Exactly. Me and this man right here were as pure and sincere, and I underline that word sincere as you'll ever get anybody.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that way. I'm not one to sit here and try to feed you a story that if I'm not convicted and believe it, I'm not going to tell you that.
Right.
I will never tell you something I'm not convicted of. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But to be truthful, me and Val talked about this a couple of days ago. It hurts me sometimes because I know the road and the path that these people are on, and it hurts me deeply because I wish they debate us on it. They come at us all the time.
Mm.
I can't believe y'all left, and y'all are crazy. You're demon possessed, and y'all are going to hell. And I'm like, if you could just open your eyes just a little bit, step away from that just a second to see what we're trying to show you, man. You'll understand where we're sitting.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of being so condemning and judgmental toward me and him because we stepped away from something that that we did. But I'll let Vaughn take over. But it's just it hurts me. It hurts. It really does.
Our motives. I'm gonna start with saying this. Our motives were pure.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah.
There was no impure motives. We were sincere, but we were sincerely wrong.
Yeah.
And I've made a video or two on YouTube apologizing to people because I was one of them preachers, and I hate to admit this, but anybody that knows Ron Hanshaw knows that number one, I was a Pentecostal preacher, and number two, I was a hard Pentecostal preacher. I did not cut back.
No.
And I came against the homosexuals, the abortionists, the liberals, the left winger, all of the whatever. I mean to tell you, and looking back on that, Tim, that grieves me.
Yeah.
That I made I got death threats.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Over those years. I mean, you can imagine.
Yeah.
I believe it. I haven't had that yet, but I'm waiting for my time to come. I get nasty grams, but not threats yet.
It bothers me, and like Howard said, what do you do once you fire that bullet out of that gun? It's gone.
Yeah.
You can't get the bullet back.
Don't return it. No.
It's gone. But nowadays, I'm trying to love everybody.
Right.
Really, truly, genuinely.
Right.
Love everybody on an equal platform, equal basis. Homosexuals,
right.
Abortionists, ladies that have abortions,
right.
Liberals, left wingers, whatever you want to, whoever.
Yeah.
I try to just include everybody under that umbrella of love, no judgment, no judgmental shit, no harsh bigotry or whatever.
Right.
None of that.
Hmm.
And it's taken a while for me. I left in March 2017 Christianity.
Hmm.
And I tell you what, it's been a journey.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to keep moving to the next stage, but I just wanted to add a quick comment or two if I could. I think I deal with a lot with at least I did before with the guilt about being a part of it. And I get it that there's certain parts of the Bible that you could say are good, like blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah, that's a good message. You should be a peacemaker. It's, messages of forgiveness, messages of grace, messages of unity. There's certainly some good stuff there. Giving, give to the poor.
Right.
Things that have blessed me to hear them and have blessed me to share them. But I feel that the cringiness, toward myself and towards other memories of the things that I've been involved in this sense, a couple senses really. Number one, it adds to the blinders of other people. Like if you were to say,
right.
If you're preaching, let's say to a group, and it includes little children, say you got 7, 10, 12-year-olds in the group, and they've got blinders on from their parents, from their VBS, from their Christian school, from their grandparents maybe, and they're blinders, but their blinders are still kind of like wobbly. It's early enough that they could change. Mm-hmm. It was like I preached and I became part of this example, like, hey, look at Tim. He's a great example of what it means to live for the Lord. And so it's almost like I was one of those people that if you could imagine that the blinders had different like pieces of metal or wood that had different pieces and they had like pre-drilled screw holes in them. And every time you hear a sermon, you're kind of tightening those screws so the blinders get tighter and tighter. I was one of those people that was effectively tightening screws in the blinders for teenagers. I was especially focused on youth group, but certainly a lot of other people with, a lot of homeless preaching, a lot of street preaching. And I look back at it and think, I wonder how many people, hopefully less than I fear, but I wonder how many people literally got those blinders so tight that the screws got put in, the super glue got put in, and they cannot see reality for the life of them. And I think the other part is that it really gets me, and I talk about this a lot, and for anyone that watches my show a lot, I'm sorry that I kind of use the same spiel, but I think it's important to remind us of this pretty frequently. The Bible is not a good book. What I mean by that is, if you were to, especially the Old Testament, but even the New, when you look at it and you say, well, just what does it say directly, or what does it imply that you need to believe? Right. And you're talking about at first some really crazy stuff like talking snakes and donkeys and talking bushes, the sun standing still, bread falling from heaven. But then you get into the angel of death, killing the firstborn of Egypt. You end up getting into genital mutilation with circumcision, blood magic, scapegoating, favoritism, both in a human sense and a divine sense of, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated, tribalism, discrimination, mass murder, genocide. You get into ethnic cleansing, hate crimes, things that we might call lynchings today, mass incarceration and kidnapping, violence, brutality, slavery, land theft, child brides, or worse, permanent prisoners of war, stoning, misogyny, dashing babies against rocks, victim blaming, such as you deserve this genocide because of your sin, all clearly commanded by the Yahweh character. And then Jesus comes along and says, I and the Father are one. So it's like, I'm that person. So when Jesus said, when Joshua said, go in, and Moses said, go in and kill everybody, don't let anybody, hack Agag to pieces.
Right.
That was Jesus saying it because he's Yahweh. And I think that the hard part is that even though that's not the gospel message is not go commit genocide. The gospel message is God loves you and has provided a way to have peace with him through Christ, through the cross and death and resurrection. But the implication is, who is this person? Who is this Jesus?
Right.
Like, if you've never heard of him, tell me all about him first. And if you're from the background I'm from, with like New Tribes Mission, you end up not even talking about Jesus till you go chronologically through the Old Testament, and then you present Jesus so that you know what Yahweh is.
Right.
And so you end up with this God that you have to believe in and defend effectively, that is into horrible stuff. And you have to say, yes, God, and to say, if we really understood sin the way God does, we would say, God, thank you for commanding genocide. And you train that to kids at a young age, and you just think, what in the world have I done?
Right.
Does that resonate at all with you?
There's a lot of guilt there, brother. Yes, sir.
It's a scary, Vaughn did a lot of videos. Me and him talked about, well, actually, me and him did a video together on the same subject you're talking about. It's a very scary book. When you step away from that book and the blinders, we've said the same thing you're saying, to take the blinders off. That book will freak you out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like me and him say, it's everything but the gospel of the Lord of Jesus Christ. I mean, it's everything but
the God of the Old Testament looks nothing like the God of the New Testament.
Yeah, it's almost like they're bipolar.
Right, or schizophrenic.
Because you're flipping. I mean, that God flips.
Right.
From a God of hate, war, death, destruction, murder, to a God of, he's a God of love.
Well,
like he was. Where did you go? You know what I mean? And it's like, no.
And you know how Marcionism was considered, not orthodox, but you can see how it came up with this, exactly what you're saying. Like, it sounds like we're dealing with two different gods here, or some kind of cosmic battle.
Right.
Not between God and Satan, but between God and another God, or two demigods.
I totally agree with that. Yes, sir. And I think that's where most Christians, like you just said, you made a great point. That you as a Christian, we automatically throw up that wall and defend. Oh, hold on, it's the word of God.
Right.
Oh, I'm a Christian, I can't speak against that.
You're looking through brain.
And again, them blinders, like you said, those blinders, man, are so heavy and so screwed in tight that your brain will not allow you. What's it called?
Cognitive dissonance.
Here, he did another video on cognitive dissonance, because our blinders and our heart and our mind is so brainwashed to thought, hey, it's the word of God, man. Don't say anything against it or you're going to go to hell. And I think if people would just step back, take a deep breath, and just listen for a second, let the blinders drop, and listen to you and Vaughn and me. Hey, guys, it ain't what it appears to be. It's a cult. They've lied to you from the beginning. All this book is a big lie.
Tim, it reminds me of this. It's something we deal with in human trafficking for these girls, and I'm going to rush through this, called trauma bonding.
Right.
Trauma bonding. Some of these girls are bound to their captors. They'll defend them. They'll fight you if you go try to rescue them away from those guys, because they're brainwashed. If we can get these, and I don't want to deconvert anybody. I don't give a shit what you believe. I don't care. But I'm just telling you, if we can get the brainwashed lenses off of people, if you look through brainwashed lenses, you're only going to see your side of things. Right. No matter what evidence we show you about the Bible being erroneous and false and fake and full of shit, more or less, then if you look through brainwashed lenses, it doesn't matter what we say.
Right. Makes no difference.
Because you're trauma bonded to this traumatic God of hate and murder and all that stuff you just read off there.
Yeah. It reminds me of the idea too of Stockholm syndrome, where somebody kidnaps you, but you kind of feel an affiliation and to eventually defend them.
Right.
Sorry, Tim, I got to move this on.
Same thing.
Sure. I wanted to ask as well at this point about, we've kind of touched on a little bit of the outside of the subject, but you've talked about the Bible's not inerrant. We've talked about some issues, but we need to hear some more of your story, the rest of the next steps. So once you're in this spot where you're firing on all cylinders, you're in ministry, your missions, you're preaching, you're teaching, you're writing books, you're doing radio, you're talking in tents, you're doing it, and you are on fire for the Lord. You are just in it to win it. The gospel is your message, shining the light, as you said, what was that song you talked about? It only takes a spark. You know,
Yeah.
that it's now a bonfire. It's a blaze in your life.
Thing blazing, yes, sir.
It's something obviously changed in each of your lives. Could you start to talk about what was it like, and specifically, could you also at some point address the question of, for people that are dealing with this issue of, you don't question the word of God, you just don't. You don't go there. That is blasphemy. It's heresy. It is dangerous. You know, that's what liberals do. The atheists, the agnostics. That's their issue. Is they won't stop and say, God, you're the king, you're on the throne, I am the worm, you know, I am the created thing and you're the creator, I can't question you.
Right.
What is it like emotionally to start to shift that and say, no, I think I'm going to, whether people want to give me this or not, I'm going to claim the right to begin to be critical, to begin to say, I used to think that faith was the virtue. Now I think that faith is not a virtue. Doubt might be the virtue. Critical thinking might be the virtue. Skepticism might be the virtue. What is it like emotionally as you start to, and bring that in, you know, sooner or later, but as you get to that point, what's it like emotionally to begin to shift those gears?
You got me to start at what it was like being in the ministry.
Well, just what was it like to, after you're in the ministry for a while, what's it like to start to shift and say, there's something else going on here? Like what happened that made you even start to question it? Because a lot of people don't even start that question.
That's where I wanted to go. Thank you very much. I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
Now, I was in the prison ministry, started in 98. Okay. So around the year 2000 or so, some of these male and female inmates, because I worked at every state prison in the state of Kentucky,
Right.
about 17 of them for 17 years, began asking me questions that I had no answers for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wrote them down. I said, well, let me get back with you on that. And I never got back with them on that, because I would go and research I had all this software on my computer, all this Bible searching software, and you know, so then I'm like, they would ask me questions I never heard of. Yeah. Like this one. He said, he's a doctor, by the way, he's in prison for crimes that doctors do. So, gotta be careful what I say. But a very smart person. Not every prisoner's, you know, illiterate. Right. A lot of them I met were smart people. They just got caught up. They weren't smart enough or whatever, not to get caught. But anyway, he said, how did Noah get 20 million animals on that little bitty boat? Yes, I said, 20 million animals. And so I called a zoologist. I live here in Kentucky, at the Cincinnati Zoo. Yeah. And this lady, I asked her, I said, how many animals was on Noah's boat, in your opinion, based on the animals we have alive today that survived or whatever? I said, does 20 million sound about right? She said, that's a conservative figure. I said, a conservative figure? Yeah, listen to this. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. She said, sir, there's no way. She said, I get this question all the time. She said, there's no way that story's true. No. She said, let's just cut through all this. There's no way that story is true. I'm like, wow. Because she went down, I was on the phone with her 3 hours. She went and named all the species of the animals and the subspecies of the dogs and the horses and the cats and the all that. No. I'm like, oh my God. No. And then another inmate, maybe a few months later, maybe a year, I got all this wrote down in my notebooks in there when they asked these questions, date. And it was right around the year 2000 when they all started, I don't know why, but when they all started popping to me. This one is the main reason I walked away from Christianity in March 2017. It took 17 years, I sat on these questions for, think about that, 17 years. Here's the number one question. What happens to those people who die in Papua New Guinea, for example, who've never even heard the name of Jesus Christ or a Bible or God or the Holy Spirit or a church, heaven or hell or anything theologically remote to that.
Right.
Nothing. And here I was at 30 years old, thought I knew it all.
Right.
Thought I had every answer to every man's problem because the Word of God's got every answer to your problem, you know.
There you go. Come on now.
And so, amen. Right? So Elvis just said amen to me. It's pretty
Come
good.
on.
Elvis and amen corner over. So,
Preach it, brother. Preach it.
so that question was the beginning of the hundreds of questions that me and him has found over these years. Yeah. I called several of my Bible college professors, scholars.
Yeah, buddy.
I mean, these guys can write and read Hebrew and Greek like me and you write and read English.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're scholars.
Yeah.
They know it. And I know they know it. I called them, several of them. And I said, let's talk about the judgment day. What happens to those people? We're talking millions of people here.
Yeah, millions.
Half the world today,
maybe billions. Yeah.
According to the Joshua Project,
yes, sir,
which is a Christian missionary organization, half the world today, 2021, has never heard of Jesus Christ.
Think of that.
Think of that. No. Today. So anyway, and a lot of them said, well, we've heard this before. You either take it by faith or you walk away. Because there's no answer to that.
Right.
There's no answer to that question.
Yeah.
And they were honest.
Like, have you heard this one? The one answer that I've heard has been given, at least for it, is that God will provide some kind of light, and that if they respond to whatever light He gives, that will be sufficient. He'll take it as if that's enough. But it puts you in a bad spot though, because now you're like this prospective missionary going through mission school thinking, I'm going to go preach the gospel. Well, if they have already had some light and they've responded well to it, then they're in a good relationship with God. But if I go preach the gospel and they say, nah, I don't think so.
Right.
Now you've screwed them for hell. They were doing fine before.
Right.
Here's my problem on that. Yeah, I've heard that. And I've also heard the Romans 1 argument where God will show them through nature, an eagle, a tree, or a river.
Yep.
That doesn't float. I'll tell you why. Why did Jesus Christ die for the whole world?
Why did He come?
Is there another way to get into heaven?
No.
The Bible clearly says, John 14:6, Jesus Christ said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man or woman, boy or girl comes to the Father but through by me. Acts 4:12, there's no other name given under heaven among men, whereby men must be saved of necessity. In the Greek's what that means. But through Jesus Christ, John 10:1, Jesus said again, if you try to get into heaven any other way than through Him, the door, then you're a thief and a robber. Revelation 20:11-15 says this, at the great white throne judgment.
Right.
If your name's not found written in the Lamb's Book of Life, you don't get that name by seeing a light.
That's right. No.
Or by seeing an eagle.
No.
Yeah.
Get that name in that book by your confession of faith in the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. Romans 10:9 and 10 says that there is no other way to heaven except Jesus. And if there is another way, then Jesus' death was
nullified.
Why did He die?
Yeah. Why did He come?
If He didn't die for everybody, He didn't die for anybody.
Nobody. Yeah. Well, like you said, Vaughn said this, it has to be a level playing field for everybody to have the opportunity. Everybody has to have the same opportunity, or why did He come?
Right.
If somebody can look at an eagle and say, oh, there's Jesus. How we have Cherokee blood in our bloodline, right?
Right.
Our great-grandfather, Gray Eagle, which is his name, biker name, if he saw an eagle, which I know he did, or a hawk, how would he know that's Jesus? There's no earthly way he would know that's Jesus.
No.
Now they believe in a great spirit, but we've talked to Native Americans. They don't consider the great spirit Jesus, God, or nothing.
No.
Because I've asked them, they said that doesn't even come into our mind.
No.
Because you're not taught like we're taught as young children to understand who Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit is.
In America, we are.
In America, they're taught the great spirit, the great beyond, the happy hunting grounds. So you're telling me if they see an oak tree sitting up there, there's Jesus. Like, that's crazy, man.
No.
You see what I'm saying?
It is,
And,
yeah. And I want to go into this a little bit deeper in a second, but just to add one more point that's come to mind, because I've had a recent conversation with someone about this too on the side. But you mentioned this idea of a level playing field,
right.
but a lot of us are usually going with that thought to like whether or not you've heard it or not, or that you got a full, clear gospel presentation, whether or not you even have the Bible in your language. And a lot of these people that the missionaries are going to don't even have a language at all. They have a language, but no alphabet, I should say.
Right.
So they can't have a Bible yet. But there's also the emotional playing field. Like, for example, let's say that you have a guy that from when a girl is really young, he abuses her terribly. He beats her up, he rapes her. She's pretty much scarred for life. I mean, deeply scarred. No matter how good it gets, she has wounds that are incredibly we can't even imagine how deep her wounds go. And he has hurt her immensely. And as she grows up, she might be thinking, there's no way there's a God. There's no way that God is loving if there was a God, because of what he let me go through. And so she goes through her life and basically becomes an agnostic or an atheist or whatever, just ignores God from a Christian perspective. The other guy, who is the criminal, and maybe he goes on to murder somebody, he goes in prison, and as he's sitting there in prison rotting his life away, he gets the gospel from the chaplain and he gets saved. So at the judgment seat, this guy that tortured this girl did some other bad stuff, because he just said some magic words at the end. He gets into paradise, just like the thief on the cross, today will be with me in paradise. But this girl that is otherwise a lovely person, because she got emotionally scarred by this criminal, she doesn't believe, she's going to burn in hell for it. So she's now been like triply screwed over this thing. And it goes on and on. It's just not, it doesn't make sense. It falls apart. And we're touching the surface here, I know, but.
Right. Yeah. It's not fair.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead, Vaughn.
Yeah. I mean, you made a great point there.
Yeah, great point.
We know people.
Yes.
I mean, with our history,
Yep.
with my law enforcement background and working as a police chaplain and in prisons and just in life in general, we know people that's been abused in churches by ministers.
Yes.
Horribly.
Yes, yeah.
Horribly.
Yep.
And a lot of them, I'm thinking of one right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to call her name, but they were. Listen to this real quick. It goes right along with what you just said. This is a perfect story.
Right.
This girl's daddy was a missionary to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Yes.
They went down there on this bus. He quit his job, sold his home, went down there to Mexico for 5 years, 6 years.
5 or 6 years, yeah.
And the missionary's brother went along with him, and he would babysit the kids while they were out in the bush evangelizing and soul winning and doing whatever they was doing.
Right.
Well, he was doing more than babysitting. He was molesting the children,
right,
but he did it with a twist.
Right.
He had an open Bible on a little bitty table. As he was raping those children, he would make them read that Bible out loud.
Yes, that's a sick.
While he was raping them.
Sick bastard right there.
And that is a sick bastard.
Yeah.
And those children, we know them well,
yeah.
will not step foot inside a church. Yet the daddy and the brother, they're just all these accolades.
All about God.
And they're all about God and living their best life.
Oh yeah.
And those children are screwed up.
I mean, they're like 4 phases past.
They can quote you whole chapters of the Bible.
Literally. That's no joke.
We've seen them.
Oh, yeah. They're scarred like 5 times out of bipolar, 5 times out of schizo. I mean, they hear voices. I mean, and Vaughn can attest to this. They're so messed up that it's like their normal day, if they ain't cutting themselves or trying to inflict pain, I mean, it's so in the name of God.
Right.
They think God hates them that bad. They have to punish themselves on a daily, and this to this day.
To this day.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all been in mental institutions.
That happened in the 80s.
They've all been in straitjackets, mental institutions. We went to visit them. It'll make you cry.
Yeah.
And technically, Christians could certainly pull a card of, well, their mental illness is different before God. But I mean, technically, in their times of sanity, if they did not bow their knee to the cross of Christ and accept it, then they stand under God's wrath. Whereas the preacher that can simply say, I do accept the blood of Christ as my atonement, they're right with God.
Now, let me interject right here, because you and Vaughn were saying something that hit me when you said that about these people. Now you answer this one, because this is to me. How in the world could those little children, now adults, our age, how could they be held accountable for that bunch of trash? It wasn't even their fault.
No.
It was a sick, twisted man who did this shit to them against their will. Their mom and daddy sat there like it was no big deal, told them it was their punishment. And when I say this, they detest God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not, I can't put the words right, how much they hate God. And I'm thinking, if you follow the course of a Christians, they're going to go to hell. No. That's, again, we're not on the same field here, guys.
Yeah.
Because they were given a card in life that says, screw you, buddy. Screw everything about you. You got bent over, literally. And dealt one. But here you go, deal with it. But you still got to love God.
Before they hit first grade, their life was screwed up.
Oh, screwed, man.
That's not.
And you imagine, like we've been saying here, imagine
in the name of God.
In the name of God, the pain. Because, I mean, Vaughn knows this. Man, we know this family very well, And those little kids would just sit and weep and cry. I mean, but and I get it. I mean, I understand it totally. And because there's nobody can help that. What do you do? And that's, how do you help that? Because we would try to feed them the Bible. They would look at us and laugh like, are you stupid?
They get quoted while we were reading it.
Yeah. I mean, they would quote it to us. And I'm like, and see, this is, again, me and Vaughn, we wrestled with this a lot. What shelf do people like that go on?
And while we're on this,
what
about me being diagnosed with muscular dystrophy?
Yeah.
I didn't ask for that. 14 years old.
Let me help you. I have seen
suffering.
I've seen this man, you're looking at him right here, go to church after church, and people would laugh and mock. Pentecostal, yes, let's clarify that. Pentecostal churches, they would laugh and make fun and tease and mock and tell him he had demons and he was full of sin and full of the devil. And there's no way you could be saved because you have a disease that, if you're saved, God would heal you, brother.
Right.
Like, do what?
And they would pour oil on me, trying to cast demons out of me, punch me in the gut.
Oh, yeah, smack him in the head with the Bible.
Bible's all that.
I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And that's what really detested me, because I said, now, if you're a Christian, where's the love of God? Where's the love to help a man that's down? Like Ephesians and Galatians says, if you see a brother fallen and taken in his situation, restore him, help him, love him. That man never got that. He never ever saw. I never witnessed the love of God. Now you'd see hypocrites that were two-faced, full of shit, that would sit there. They get up and preach. Oh, I love Jesus and all this. Look at him, brother. You must be full of the devil.
I've had preachers not even allow me on the stage to preach.
Yes, sir.
They'd make me stay down on the floor to preach because they said my sickness would corrupt their anointing.
Would corrupt us. I mean, crazy, man.
So anyway, getting back to your main question, how did I transfer from being a full-time minister over to where we at now? Right.
Yeah.
I didn't forget that. So
yeah, please
get into that.
take us in.
All right. So
we're going to the deep end here.
All right, here we go. So March 2017 comes around, and I got up one morning randomly, and those questions have been on my mind for about a month or two, and I couldn't shake it. I said, you know what? I'm going to find an answer to these questions this week, or I'm going to walk away.
Yeah.
I'd sat on it for 17 years, asking questions to all these theologians I knew all over the creation. And I got up that week, and that was on a Monday. By Friday, I spent the entire week researching the Judgment Day question. That number one question: what happens to those people that die that's never heard of Jesus?
Yeah.
There was no answer. Nobody could give me an answer, so I walked away.
Yeah.
And it's been a emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
For me. Because I don't care what you're a part of for 39 years.
Right.
I was only 47 years old when I walked away. I'm 50 years old right now. He's 48.
49.
I don't care what you're 49. I don't care what you're doing for 39 years of your life.
Right.
That's who you are.
That's your life, man. Yeah.
That's your life.
That's your life, man. Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and lie to anybody. And act like that's been an easy transition,
Right.
an easy journey. It's been rough.
Right.
I lost all of my friends, Christian friends, except like 2,
Right.
3.
Right.
Nobody. I mean,
Did anyone ever come in and ask you, to kind of walk them through it, like in the sense of like, hey, you clearly had a lot to lose here and you were willing to lose it. You must know something that I don't know, because I wouldn't walk away, so to speak. So what did anyone kind of question you to say, can you walk me through this?
no, they just said you never had it to begin with, or
Right.
you wouldn't have left.
Very, very
You
rude.
never were saved to begin with, or you wouldn't have lived.
You're not a true
I'm like, boys,
Scotsman.
if I wasn't saved,
If
I don't know who in the hell is.
Yeah.
Here's
Go ahead, go ahead.
mine's a little bit different. Not really. It's a little bit
He
different.
left long before I did.
Yeah, my journey ended.
Elvis is smarter than me. Let's just get
I got the little Elvis pelvis shake. And in 2007, my story, me and Vaughn's story are literally mirrored. We kind of did the same thing, and I did not do the prison ministry like he did, but everything else, street ministry, tent ministries, revivals, camp meetings, Church of God, campgrounds, TV, radio ministries. We did everything. So we are very deep in ministry. I mean, very deep. But I had an old man at the last church I pastored walked up. He was 90 years old. His name was Brother Baker. Good man, great man. One of my best friends at that time. And he said, Brother Hanshaw, he said, I got a question for you. And I didn't, people say it, in church, they ask you everything. And I thought, all right, yes, sir. I said, ask away. And he said, I've been wrestling with this he said, basically all his life. He said, how in the world did sin enter into Satan's heart in a perfect place called heaven? And I thought, and it stumped me. And I tell Vaughn the story laughing. I said, I give him that old pat answer. Brother, let me look in the Bible. Let me pray. Let me kind of seek this out. Because at the time I was clueless. It stunned me. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I go home. Our dad, like I told you, I can't really say this correctly. Our dad was a walking scholar.
Yeah.
If that man, I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you, this is what took me out right here. I went home after that service and I, eat stuff like that. And I called Dad. I said, hey, I got a real crazy question for you. Because that man could give me an answer like that. And I would always ask Dad something before I preached to make sure I was lined up right. Make sure everything was squared away. And he'd give me some pointers and, all that good stuff. So I said, hey, Dad, I said, this man asked me a wild question at church. And I said, I need an answer. He said, what? He goes, how in the world did sin enter Satan's heart in a perfect place called heaven? And the phone paused for a long time. And, Daddy wasn't that way. My dad was very quick, very smart man. He said, before I say this, then he stopped. He said, if I tell you what I'm going to tell you, he said, it will ruin your faith. And I thought, do what? And I thought, okay. So what do I tell him? He said, I'm not going to answer that. And I mean, this is a man that would give me an answer like that. Not even bat an eye. And so it hit me like this. I thought, if he don't have an answer, there ain't no answer. Because this man was a walking Bible. Literally. So it hit me in my gut. And again, I go back to our previous conversation earlier in this interview. If I didn't feel the convicting power of the Holy Spirit on something, I knew something was not right. In my mind, I thought, something here's off, man. So I went back to church that night, and I'm not going to lie to you, I never felt it again. I felt the call leave me. I felt the preaching leave me. I felt everything kind of just drop. And I resigned 2 weeks later, and I said, you know what, man, I can't do this. I just can't. Because in me, then me and Vaughn started talking. All these questions start just rising out of nowhere. This man over here was digging like a maniac. This is several years later, don't get me wrong, not immediately later. And then I got turned on to a guy named Bart Ehrman. I know you know. And Bart Ehrman has changed my absolute outlook on life, to be truthful.
Yeah, we like Bart.
Bart's my hero. Yep. Because Bart absolutely destroyed.
I think I've even got a couple of his books here.
Yeah.
A couple up for free advertising for Bart Ehrman. Here's
yes, please do that. Yes,
Forged
Yes.
And another one I've got handy here, misquoting Jesus.
Yes, that's my favorite right there. Yes, sir.
I know there's a ton more, but this is my free advertising for Bart
To
today.
give this man his due, he has helped me more than anybody besides Von Hanshaw right here, has helped me understand where I'm at today.
Right.
Nobody else. I mean, I've really listened to a lot of people here and there, and I can name some names, but Bart Ehrman has given me more clarity.
His credibility
Yes.
to me is up there.
Of why I'm where I'm at today, because he makes sense, because it's logical. It's logical where he's at is where I'm here, is why I'm here, is what I'm saying. Because I was really fighting, like Vaughn said, I'm not going to lie, it's hard to walk away from something that was your life, man. I mean, that's all you did. You know, I worked outside of I had a worldly job, don't get me wrong, but our life was consumed. You know, we did the hospital visit, the nursing home visits, the nursing home preaching, street ministries, all this stuff. And to sum it up, to answer your question, I'm glad I'm where I'm at today. I'm glad that I'm on this side of it now. I'm glad I'm glad he's my brother, number one. I love this man to death. I'm glad I ran into guys like you. I'm glad I met a guy. I mean, I met Bart Ehrman, but I'm glad I ran across videos like Bart Ehrman's, have books out, because it helps us to finally put that stamp of approval saying, hey guys, you're right.
That we're not alone.
That we're not alone in this stuff. Because I mean, I felt like, like me and Vaughn's talked about this a lot. You feel kind of like, man, I mean, is there more people out there? Are there others that are agreeing with what we're saying here? Have we just lost our minds?
Right. We finally slip over the edge.
We slip over the edge.
We're going. Our mother passed away.
Yeah.
November of last year. Thanksgiving Day, November 24th.
Thanksgiving Day.
We're going to go to her birthday's this Thursday.
Yeah.
As soon as we get out of the interview, we're going to go to her cemetery, pay our respects.
We'll have a little birthday party for you.
But we talk about this all. This will be my first, mine and your, without her birthday. Yeah. And we were very, very, she's my best friend. Yeah. And we talk about where's she at now.
We question it.
We question this. Yeah. We don't know. Yeah. We don't believe in heaven no more. We don't believe in hell, certainly. No. We don't know what's after this. Nobody does. No. But we do. So to answer your question, where are we at now? I don't know. I still haven't found my footing. I do believe in a creator.
I do too.
I believe something created us and all this world that we see. I've landed sort of in my ancestors' Native American Cherokee religion kind of thing. But still yet, I feel lost, like he said, detached. My whole identity's gone.
Right.
My whole daily routine's gone.
Yeah. Can I ask you a few questions?
Identity is the biggest thing.
Yeah. It really it guts you. What was your relationship with your mother better after some of that earlier bad stuff kind of got pushed out? Did you all get a chance to deeply connect with her?
Yeah.
She was our rock growing up.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Mom,
she was our pillar.
Yeah, Mom was always Yeah, Mom was always
Without her, I don't know where we'd ended up.
That's no joke. I mean, with how Dad raised us, Mom was always that, like Vaughn said, that rock, that pillar that didn't let us move too far away. I mean, we didn't drift too far because Mom always reeled us back in. Thank whatever God. Yeah. We're talking about here.
Well, can I just say I just want to respond to a couple things if you're okay, and then I want to kind of take us into a kind of a few closing into a few closing subjects. But number one, I just want to say I love the fact that you guys do know your Bibles. Number one, of course, I'm sorry that we all had to memorize them so much, but there's a sense in which you're dangerous. I'm dangerous because there's not much the Christians could tell us. You get this pushback of, I get it sometimes that people make these YouTube comments. There's always snarkiness that occurs from the Christian side. It's pretty nasty sometimes, but they'll say stuff like, "Have you ever even read your Bible?" Right. Like, I've memorized huge chunks of it. I've read it dozens of times. Like, I know my Bible. But when you get past the stupid snarkiness and you get people that actually just listen to you, they realize like you actually do know your Bible, and you guys can go quote chapter and verse. I can as well. And you get to a point where they realize you know the gospel forwards and backwards. This is,
Right.
we're not talking about some, like when I was growing up, if you were to say, what does a liberal Roman Catholic believe about the gospel? I would have said, it doesn't matter. There's no way a liberal Roman Catholic knows what the gospel is. But
Right.
you talk about someone that knows the gospel, the glorious gospel of grace backwards and forwards, that knows the whole Romans road, that can take you through the whole thing very clearly, and that you end up with a very clear gospel that includes nothing of yourself, all of God, all of grace, through faith alone, justification by his propitiation, his gift, free gift through Jesus. You get someone that knows that gospel, has preached it, that's brought other people into the kingdom, so to speak,
Right.
and those people say this is garbage, this
Right.
isn't real.
Right.
There's not much left for the Christians to say, because they know. And I think there's an intimidation factor that I've wondered at times if people haven't come to me and said, hey, Tim, let's talk about it. What made you leave? Can we talk about the gospel again? Because they know, and I'm not saying this is, they should respond this way, but just saying I suspect some of it is the intimidation factor. And I think
Right.
you all might be receiving it too, that they know there's nothing they can tell you that you haven't already said and preached and thought and written about.
Right.
And it's not like we know it all.
Right.
I don't want to come across as know it all, because I don't. He don't.
Right.
My dad didn't. But we know enough.
We know enough.
Yeah, you know your Bibles.
I can understand my ground. Easy.
And
Yeah.
I told somebody the other day on one of my YouTubes that we was talking about this. I said I had to study the Bible to find out it was false.
Right. That's a fact.
Like if you're I'm
Yeah.
not being mean, but if you're just a novice, a baby Christian,
Right.
and you think you know God and the Bible because you know John 3:16,
Right.
don't go there with me.
Let me say this.
You know what I mean?
Let me-
you
let
got
me-
to know the Bible enough to know whether it's true or false.
I want to say this because
That makes sense.
this man gets flack. I'll watch his YouTube every day. I watch, man, we go back and forth because I back him and he backs me. Like a good
That's
brother.
awesome.
But I love people, and I'm not being mean. I'm not being mean-spirited. But I know you. I can tell by how you're talking. You've come across this. I love people that's been saved for 1 week and they're instant scholars. Like just sit down, just be quiet and just listen.
Right.
Just open your ears just for a second, please. We've done this long enough, man. Between us three, the years that we've studied the Bible between us is probably 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, no joke. We're both 50. How old are you, Tim?
44.
I mean, that's over 100 years worth. 100 years worth of studying.
There you go.
And you've been saved 1 week, and you're going to come at me like you know something?
Right.
Dude,
Like
what?
I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, they act like we're stupid. I'm like, come on, people. I mean, just step back and just listen to what we have to say for just a second.
And see, a lot of them want to make it personal.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not. See, my videos on YouTube
No.
are I want you to answer my questions.
Yeah, don't take it personal.
I don't care about me.
Yeah.
Answer my questions. But see,
What-
they distract. It's called diversion. It's a diversion
Right.
tactic.
Yeah.
They don't have the answer, of course.
Right.
So they got to come at me.
One thing I love that you're bringing out too, and then it makes me think of this question is just the idea of actually questioning your whole worldview to say, not, could there be this many people or this many animals on the boat with Noah? How did this happen? Why are there literally nine different endings to the Gospel of Mark out there? Like what, not the discrepancies, but just saying, I just want to question the whole perspective of, is there a Yahweh? Is there Jesus? Is there a heaven and hell? The ability to question that is such a cool thing, because when we were Christians, we would have, I'm sure you would have wanted other religious people of other religions to do that. You would have said, hey, Mr. Muslim, hey, Mrs., whatever, you believe in Krishna, hey, whatever, you atheist. You would want to say, can you just admit for a second that you might be wrong? And I remember when we would do preparations for soul winning and stuff, one of the questions we would use a lot is, if you were to die tonight and you were to stand before God and he was to say, why should I let you into heaven? What would you say? And of course you'd get the answers a lot of, well, I'm a pretty good person. I haven't killed anybody. I try not to lie and steal. I give away stuff. I love my mom, blah, blah, blah. I'm a good person. That's why God just let me into heaven. And your answers should be, if you're a good Protestant, thank you. That's, good starting point. Thank you for being honest. But according to the Bible, that's not going to cut it with God. And you put it in their face by saying, if you're wrong, do you want to know? If you're wrong about that, do you want to know? If that answer is not sufficient to get you into heaven, and of course, most people, if they don't know what you're about to do, they say, yeah, I'll listen to your spiel. Why are you saying I'm so wrong? Because I know I'm a good person. I do deserve heaven. Why is that a wrong answer? That can't be the wrong answer. Tell me what you're saying. And so you'd open it up that way. You'd want people to take the bait and say, just maybe, even if it's a theoretical conversation, just maybe, for the sake of argument, maybe I'm wrong. Let's talk about it. But Christians can't do it. And I think that's where it's such a threat to them, because what you're saying is, I know the Bible, I know the gospel, I know the worldview so well. It was not just I adhered to it culturally. It was me. My identity was, I was in Christ. Christ was in me. I lived and breathed the gospel. I love Jesus. I love his word. I love the kingdom of God. And I love spending my life doing anything I could to bring other people into his kingdom. And then you, as a person who's that deep in it, turns and says, none of this is real. It's not real. That existential threat is so big. And yet it's like you can't get people. Christians will say, I want Mr. Muslim. I want anyone else of any other religion. I want all of you all, even other Christian cults. I want Mormons. I want Jehovah's Witnesses. I want all of you all to please think about it. Maybe you're wrong, but they can never turn it back and say, maybe I'm wrong.
From an apologetics pastor that you're talking to here, I've been in debates with those guys.
Yeah.
I would challenge them. I knew their books.
Right.
I would study their Bibles and their books and their literature.
Yeah.
So I could pick it apart. And I would challenge them to do what you're saying.
Yeah.
But don't do that to Christians.
No.
That's not fair.
Yep. It's not fair.
That's it.
You're blasphemous.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, can I ask, one of the main sections I wanted to take us into here towards the end is, I wanted to start to dig into, go past the issue of there's discrepancies in the Bible, or there are philosophical issues like, why did God command genocide in Canaan? Why did he, give people, steal people's land? Is that appropriate? Why were there child brides? All that stuff. And some of the crazier stories, like, did the sun really stand still for Joshua?
Right.
All that stuff. Was there a talking snake? I want to go into the issue of just where did this whole thing come from? Did you all dive in at all to the origins of this story, whether we're talking about the origins of the Yahweh character, the origins of the Jesus story, or the origins of the biblical canon? Like, what did you uncover as you began to get into Bart Ehrman and other scholars?
Yeah. What I discovered was that mythology plays a huge role, in my opinion, on the formation of Christianity. Just my opinion. And, going back to the Old Testament, mythology, even back then, the Roman gods and all of that, there's a lot of, there's a creation story in every religion. And they're all similar. There's a virgin birth story in several religions and the Greek mythology and all that. So,
when you were growing up, Vaughn, when you heard the Noah story, did they bring up Gilgamesh and all that?
No. And the origin of the Bible, for my opinion, and studies and whatnot, going way back to Constantine, was voted upon by men.
Yes.
I mean, based on what they wanted.
It was
And the books that were not included were books they didn't want included on the canonicity test. So, for my opinion, it's all a man-made book to control people through fear tactics. That's the way I look at it.
See, I studied out. Me and Vaughn have talked about this for years now. There are, anybody listening to this, there, and I'm just going to use this one. There's 15 different Jesuses throughout history. And people are like, and it's the same story, same, like Vaughn said, the same virgin birth, same 12-year-old kid in the temple, goes all the way out, leads his life, gets all these disciples, goes out, gets crucified, raises from the dead again, and he ascends. So you look throughout all of that and you're like, and again, and as a Christian, you turn a deaf ear to that. Because you can't listen to that stuff. But on our side of it now, you're like, so there's 15 different Jesuses throughout before the biblical account. That's what's crazy. And if you watch that really closely, I mean, you're telling, and that's why me and Vaughn always say this. all those accounts before the actual Jesus in the Bible, as people want to call it, that are Christians, I mean, it's the same thing, guys. I mean, you're sitting there trying to tell me that it's just the original, like Vaughn said, the original canonicity, but no, there was 15 prior to him. So no, that's why, you know, that absolutely debunks that story in my book. And like you said, Gilgamesh. I mean, I've read all these. It's just Christians hang on to something because it's God's way. Like, no.
I love how too with even just the origins of the way you kind of do church. You know, there were people talking about how they would say we have a group, a congregation, and we have a mystery that we want to reveal to you, the initiate. Right. But we're not going to let you in right away. You have to do a couple things.
Right.
Number one, you have to get baptized. Number two, you have to have a sacred meal with us of bread and wine or bread and beer. And then once you get in the club, so to speak, we will start to expand to you in levels, the mysteries of the kingdom, so to speak. And then we will call you a brother or a sister of our family. They were doing that for hundreds of years before Christianity. And then Christianity comes along and does the exact same thing. And that's, of course, the tip of the iceberg. But just the whole idea that Christians aren't willing to realize that what they got was borrowed and an adaptation of other things. It wasn't necessarily one for one copy, but there was a lot of that too. But it was an adaptation. It had a Jewish flavor. It certainly, there was more blood magic because of the Jewish background. Right. Other religions weren't all about blood always, but a lot of them were. But you bring in the blood magic and the substitutionary atonement from the Jewish, the Torah, and you bring that into the Greco-Roman mystery cults, and you can totally understand where it came from.
I studied this part. I'm just going to give a little. I want to interject this real quick. If most Christians would see this, I studied this out for about 6 months, about 2 years ago, once me and Vaughn County got turned on to this. If people would realize that, I'm just going to use this, Matthew 7, then this entire chapter, right? That, let's just use chapter 7, verse 5. If they understood that from the beginning word to the ending of that word, every word means something. That's why when you talk to Christians, oh, you got to preach it in context, right? And you hear this all your life. If they understood there's more error in the Bible than there are words. Now, if that would sink into Christians and let them understand that there was not, I mean, every line, and here's something else that's crazy. Me and Boss talked about this. That half of the scriptures in the Bible that they think's the inscribed word of God were called fillers. They just made it up on the fly. Mm-hmm. The scribes just made it up to make the verse, to end the verse. Flow better. Yeah, make it flow better. Right. And you're like, and you're sitting there, you're thinking you're preaching the inspired word of God, but it's just something a man made up, man. I'm like, and again, if you want to go about context, how can you put in context when the word "the" and the sentence means 4 different meanings? And it's just like, you can't, because it's all lies. It's impossible.
And then now let me clarify what he just said, because I know there's going to be Christians watching your show, I hope. Hello.
Yeah.
And,
hopefully.
I love you. And so those filler words are the italicized words.
Right.
In your shiny new King James Version Bibles. Yep. They're on your coffee tables. Open that up. In the middle of that column are the italicized words. That's the words the scribes added. Those are not inspired by God. No. Those are man-made words. Right. Just to make it flow a little bit. Another thing that got me on this subject that I can't reconcile in my mind. I'm an author. I've written over 70 books.
Right.
I may not know much. I know how to play pool. I know how to kiss a woman. I know how to write a book. Right.
So you got the essentials down.
The basics.
That's it. So the books of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, number one, were not written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And number two, they were written, I mean, years and years after
300 years
Jesus
the account, right.
died.
Right.
Now, I'm an author. Yeah. Like our brother died in 2009.
Right.
Was that 12 years ago?
12 years ago.
Whatever. And I know him all of his life.
Yeah.
I'd be hard pressed right now to write a book on my brother William's life. He's been gone 12 years.
Right.
And it'd be accurate.
Right. He thinks 300 years later.
But we're talking 100. Let's just go conservative. Let's go 80 years
Right.
after he died. How in the hell is that accurate?
No. And it wasn't by eyewitness either.
Right.
It was done by word of mouth.
Right.
And, you know, and let me throw this in because I'm glad you got on that point.
Right.
When you were in school at 8 years old, the teacher would do a little thing to say, hey, Johnny's wearing a red tie. Pass that around the room. By the time it got back to her, he was wearing black pants.
Musical chairs.
Yeah, musical chairs, because you can't keep the same story on. Right. Now imagine 80 to 100 years later, like this man's saying, and it wasn't even by eyewitness. It was word of mouth.
Hearsay.
Yeah.
No, that's why I can't. No, I don't buy it.
I think just to add, I'm going to add a few things here just that I wrote down for this part of it too. The way that we're taught this story is
Right.
basically, you know, these books. There may have been people that obeyed God throughout history, but these books were written by men that God specifically picked them and said, you know, Isaiah, right, I'm going to speak through you, and this is not, even though it's using your language and your background, these are actually my words to humanity through you, Isaiah, through you, Jeremiah, and I am specifically, you know, speaking to the world through these books, and right, that God somehow picked you know, other men later. Oh, you pretty much always men. I'm picking men to speak it pretty much 99% of the time, and I'm picking men to decide for sure which book should be. So if somebody's like, well, I don't know, it's kind of dicey in this one chapter, so I'm not sure if that's inspired. These men are picked by God to right, decide and make it clear to us. Well, you end up getting this party line, so to speak, of Christianity, where you say we have the complete book from God, the canon. This is God's right, inspired word. Right. And they don't tell you the rest of the story. They don't tell you, for example, that there were over 40 different gospels written. They don't right, tell you that there's 6 different books of Acts. They don't tell you that especially from a Protestant perspective, they don't tell you that the church in Ethiopia, which is, you know, millions and millions and millions of people over the centuries, millennia, they've never lost the book of Enoch. These right, churches that love Jesus with all their heart, they love the gospel, they've never lost the book of Enoch. And for us, we'd be like, what is the book of Enoch? Right. Most Christians that I grew up with, they would have not even heard of it, let alone read it, let alone accepted it.
Right.
And you add into it a whole bunch of other stuff. And I just want to go through this list real quick. Most Christians do not know, number one, the whole background of the Greco-Roman mystery cults. I was certainly not taught it, even at Bible college. They do not know that the Bible is, especially that the New Testament, is heavily influenced by Aristotle, by Plato, by Pythagoras, and by Stoic philosophers. Mm-hmm. I find quotes from Plato directly in the New Testament, not just in those sections of Acts where you can clearly tell Paul's talking to the other philosophers and you can kind of tell he's quoting philosophers, right, but just Plato woven into the scriptures where you don't even know what's happening. I just found another 3 of them last night. I dig into this stuff nonstop. Zoroastrian and Egyptian influences abound all over the place. I mean, where did circumcision and blood magic come from? They're straight out of Egypt. Why did Israel have a very quasi fuzzy version of the afterlife? There's just Sheol, and suddenly it becomes right, clear there's a heaven and a hell. That's Zoroastrianism. They copy and borrow extensively from the Greek pantheon and from Mithraic beliefs, from Mithraism. Luke and Acts are based heavily on Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, both in structure, detail, and in direct quotes, lots of them. The Gospels also borrow heavily storylines from Euripides and Virgil, from the Bacchae and all that. The Gospel of Mark is based on the zodiac. If you look at the stories, it's this, and you look at the signs of the zodiac, they line up in the right order. The author of Luke borrowed from Josephus. The author of Luke also borrowed from Plutarch, or was heavily aware of his writings. It looks like it's possible even that Luke was Plutarch. The New Testament quotes extensively from the Dead Sea Scrolls, Community Rulebook, from the Temple Scroll, from the War Scroll, the Songs of Sabbath Sacrifice. All this, like, why is Jesus quoting the Qumran Rulebook? The New Testament quotes or plagiarizes the book of Enoch, which is much older, at least 100 times, and it quotes many other deuterocanonical or pseudo-epigraphical books. I always got caught on that word, pseudo-epigraphical books, hundreds of times, including endless quotes from the Wisdom of Solomon, from Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, Baruch, Esdras, Jubilees, Judith, Tobit, the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, the Assumption of Moses, the Book of Jasher, the Life of Adam and Eve. There's quotes in your New Testament as Protestants that are all from all these other books, and they don't even tell you. There's a lot of other philosophers. Gematria, do you all ever dive into Gematria?
I've heard of it.
It's in Jewish numerology, early Kabbalah. It played a big part in it. When you look at John 21 and it says they pulled in 153 fish. I mean, I just want to beg Christians at that time, I'm like, do you not see there's a number, 153 is very specific.
Right.
Do you know why it is? If you were a Pythagorean, which the Essenes were extensive Pythagoreans, why would they weave in a Pythagorean magic number right in the middle of Jesus' story of the fish? It's exactly what you'd expect. These were Pythagoreans. Early Christians were Pythagoreans and Essenes. And on top of that, the last thing I'll just mention, and this is a good point again to bring up Bart Ehrman, but there are forgeries and counter forgeries. And this isn't the counter forgery book, but there's forgeries and counter forgeries where people are literally arguing against each other. And like when you see and I think it's 1 Corinthians where Paul says, don't worry about eating meat that's been sacrificed to idols, because there's no real idol, there's no other god, so it's a nothing, it's a non-issue. And then a couple chapters later he says, but don't do it, we don't want to have anything to do with the works of the demons. And it's like, well, why are you saying two different things? Or hey, don't, women don't speak in church, just talk to your husbands when you get home. But then he's like, I got all these women with me in ministry. Right. Because they're arguing within the text. It's different people. It's not Paul. It might have been someone named Paul or someone we think of as Paul, but they add in all these other arguments over centuries, which you're pointing out, and they're arguing within the text. And by the time we get it, it is an absolute mess that may have had very little to do with the original story. The original Christians may have had a very different perspective. It's like it got started here, then they added this, added this, then they took this part away. Someone else redacted it, adds a few edits here. Some other group later on says, well, there's all these, 100 books, we're going to pick 66. And it's like, we don't even know what the original story was per se. And then we get to it here in our part in history and say, we've got the answer. And it's like, you don't even know where this thing came from.
Don't know where it came from. Right.
Oh, it so frustrates me.
Well, I did a little bit of research about 6-7 months ago, and I'm just going to use the New Testament, just the 4 Gospels. There were 5,000. I've told Vaughn this story. 5,830 copies, and they were all wrong before they got it.
Yeah.
Now think of that. Now to me that blows my mind. And he's a writer. I'm not a writer, but I'm thinking, if you got 5,830 copies that were all wrong to begin with, or like you just said, that's why when you said that it triggered, I thought, where do you get this stuff at? I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How do you compare that and call that the infallible word of God? It's a bunch of garbage. It's a bunch of stories just made up.
Yeah.
But, and it's not even correct, to be truthful.
Yeah. And it's scientifically, it falls apart with what we know about the universe now.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about two final questions, two final topics. The first one will be blood magic, and then the second one is going to be healing from religious trauma. So let's dive into blood magic. You get this story, of course, right from the beginning. Adam and Eve, they're sinners. God, this loving Father, decides to put the enemy of their souls in the garden with them, or let them have access. Such a loving thing to do. Put a king cobra in the nursery, and as soon as they fall, the first thing that has to happen, of course, we know God has to kill an animal and cover the Adam and Eve with coats of skin. Right. And we get right away, there's something has to die. You get to Cain and Abel. God accepts Abel with the blood sacrifice, the animals. He rejects the produce from Cain. You get it clearly. God loves. He wants you to kill sheep and goats and turtle doves and all this. He likes blood, lots and lots and lots of it. Why do you think it's so hard for Christians to look at this and say, they would call it, of course, blood atonement. There's power in the blood. Every time I say that, I get that hymn. There's wonder working power. Yes. It's like this. You get used to it. You just get so used to blood. Is the blood of Jesus. The blood. I claim the blood of Jesus. Right. And it's like this is a magic blood cult. It's really weird. You have a God who likes the smell of burning flesh. Right. Why do Christians are not able to see that this is really bizarre stuff?
Right. In my apologetics part of my ministry, and I'm not judging anybody here, I'm just saying what I've done here. I've met Santeria cult members, that's a blood cult.
Right.
That's what they do. I met them in the prison.
Hmm.
We would get them a chicken.
Yeah.
They were allowed to have a chicken in the chapel. And I never did participate, but I knew what they were doing. They kill a chicken, pour the blood on themselves. It's a blood cult.
Right.
And everybody knows that's weird, that's strange, that's bizarre,
Mm-hmm.
all that. But why Christians cannot see that is beyond me. Because Christianity is a leading blood cult.
Yes.
Leading blood cult.
Me and Vaughn, we've been in services together. We've preached together for years. And it sounds crazy to me now saying what I'm going to say to you, but back in the day, this was normal talk to us. We would used to sit and chant, I claim the blood, I claim the blood, I claim the blood. Just get a mantra going to pump the crowd up, no joke.
Right.
Plead the blood, plead the blood, plead the blood. You're going to get victory, you're going to get victory. You got to claim and plead the blood. All this. And you step back and you're like, whoa, people, what are you look at it now and you're like, what the heck was we doing?
And
because it's crazy because
the blood cults have a chance.
Yes.
That they do.
Oh, it's almost like somebody
build that energy up.
It's in like what was his name? Anton LaVey. I know you know who I'm talking about.
I don't think I do know that name, no.
Oh, he was the
started the Church of Satan.
Started the Church of Satan, and they had like the bloodletting, and they would mix blood with urine and all this stuff. And again, that's a normal day for these guys. But you would think in Christendom, blood, when it comes to like you're saying, the blood sacrifices and the blood magic and all this stuff, you would think that would be, you'd be against that stuff because it shouldn't be a part of that. But it's the entire basis of what we are. Without that, you would not have salvation.
But see, the Old Testament speaks out against that.
Right.
You're not allowed to do that to Baal.
That's
or
true.
Molech.
That's true.
To those gods.
Right.
God, Yahweh, Jehovah, Elohim, whatever you want to call him,
right,
spoke out against that.
Against it, that's true.
Don't throw your babies into the fires of Molech or Baal or whatever. But now you can, kill the goats and the lambs
and the turtle doves
in my name, in my honor.
Right.
There's a contradiction. There's a hypocrisy there that needs to be exposed.
Right.
There's a double standard.
Yeah.
You can't have your cake and ice cream too. Either it's wrong for everybody to do that,
right,
or it's not.
Right.
If one blood cult gets a free pass, then all of them get a free pass.
That's exactly right.
It's interesting.
Christianity.
Yeah.
It's interesting too. Archaeologically, they've been able to show that early Israel did have child sacrifice. So they that story was like a later addition, but they did do the same thing. That was the people they're fighting against they were that same group of people.
That's why that Yahweh could easily ask Abraham to go kill Isaac.
Yeah.
Without even hesitation.
And then when you get to the present day with the church, you get communion, which is kind of like this, whitewashed version of it. But, you're invited every week or month or every few weeks to say, I want you to metaphorically partake and drink of the blood of Christ and eat his body. And yes, it's a cracker and juice or wine, but it's like the bizarreness of this and the fact that Christians can't see it I think is a real testimony to the idea that this is brainwashing. Like you said, this is a cult.
Yes.
The fact that you can't look at blood magic and say, I am in something that is so twisted. It's a blood magic death cult that's focused on human sacrifice, and it's heavily influenced and redacted from the Greco-Roman mystery cults. That is obvious, and people can't see it.
Right. It is obvious.
I hate to use this as an analogy, but Vaughn made a video on this, and he kind of touched base on it. But we all know about the Jim Jones tragedy over in Guyana.
Yeah. The Kool-Aid man, right?
And it's so true to follow that story along with Christendom. Because we all drank the Kool-Aid. We all partook of that Kool-Aid. When we got saved, we drank that Kool-Aid. I mean, like you're saying, metaphorically speaking. Because we all sit down and said, yes, I will accept and do what you want me to do. And you receive that blood as a covering to cover your sins, to be in the right standing with God as the righteousness of God.
Right.
And it's crazy. But you accept it like it's nothing. But like we were saying, you step away from that now and you're like, oh my gosh, it's scary.
And you're taught, like we said earlier, never to question,
never to
confront it, never to challenge it,
right,
never to be skeptical of it. never criticize it for God's sake.
Right.
Or you're gonna, like I've had preachers tell me, and just the other day said, you're going to hell for speaking out against God and Christianity. Just a lot of them says that. And it's all fear tactics.
Fair.
Do you all ever wake up? I've heard of atheists that sometimes wake up with that kind of almost as if they may have had a dream about what they used to believe, and they kind of wake up in a sweat. Do you ever wake up afraid of that, or maybe of the rapture happening and you're left behind or anything?
No.
I have no.
No, when I walked away, I made up my mind that I'm done.
Yeah, that's me too. Yeah, I've never had like a premonition or reoccurrence or a dream or.
I don't worry about it.
I don't either. I really don't. I feel like once I've settled my mind,
right,
and I know in my heart that I'm right. I feel like I'm right.
Right.
It really don't bother me because
if I second guessed it,
right,
I wouldn't be here.
That's right. That's exactly right. I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
Because I knew, like me and Vaughn say, I always, I know it sounds crazy. I check my gut. If my gut's like, hey man, you made the right decision. I know you're right. What you was in there, was wrong. And we've done our homework. And again, like Vaughn said, I wouldn't be here talking to you today if I did not feel 100% that I made the right decision.
And now we don't know what the God is. I pray every day.
Yeah.
I'm a spiritual person.
I
pray to the Creator every day.
Yep.
Whoever he or she is, I don't know.
Right.
But
that's our journey. I think that's where we're at, trying to find out what that is, or who that is, or if there's many. I believe there's many.
There's thousands of them.
I do. I believe there's thousands.
Would it upset you if you could foresee yourself in 5 years, say that you could get a video like this going with yourselves for 5 years in the future, and the view of the future says that you in 5 years concluded that there was nothing else, that we're just animals, just like we wouldn't necessarily talk about there's an afterlife for a lizard or an afterlife for a fish or an afterlife for a bacteria. We are evolved animals, and there's no afterlife that we talk about for the primates, and we are from primates, so there's no afterlife for us. Would it upset you if you just found out that the future you didn't believe in any gods?
No,
not really. At my stage, I'm just talking about myself personally, and again, me and Vaughn talk about this a lot. I don't really, and I think it's more of just learning more, kind of digging in deeper.
Yeah.
Trying to find, like Vaughn said, our footing to kind of see, hey man, where are we at now? I guess the best way to put it, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad in 10 years, 15, because nobody knows the future. Nobody knows. I think about where my mom is, like Vaughn. And that's my key right now is, where is mom at right now?
Right.
I kind of put that as my footing. I just hope she's resting, she's peaceful, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I hope she's in a good place.
For me to get to the place, personally, where I would say there's no creator,
right,
that would be another transition.
Right. I have to agree with that.
Because I look around at me and him and you,
right,
and the nature and things.
The entire world.
And I gotta say something
made this. Something happened.
I'm assuming.
Right.
Don't know what.
Yeah.
But,
and I can respect it. I don't land there myself. I'm more of I guess you call it a naturalist, whatever, but I don't think there's anything else. I think we're heavily evolved animals. It's amazing that we're here. It is the luck of the draw that we're here. But I don't think we're anything more than evolved primates. And
see,
when we die, we don't go anywhere.
And what you just said right there, that's another point. Like when you leave Christianity,
right?
In general, you lose your purpose in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I did.
Right.
I lost my entire reason.
Right. For living.
For being.
Yeah. For your being.
And doing.
Yeah.
And existing. It's a strange place I'm in.
It is.
I'm not sure if everybody goes through this or not, but like I said, you can't do something for 30 years of your life and then quit it and wake up the next day like nothing happened.
Yeah, you feel good about it.
Right.
It ain't like I'm sad.
No.
But it's like a death.
Yes.
I made a video on that the other day.
We had talked. You have to. That's a good point. He just said you almost have to have how do we say that? A funeral.
Yeah.
You almost have to have a funeral you almost have to bury this thing.
Right.
Because it's such a great. It's everything about you.
Right.
I mean, it's your spirit man, your body man, your conscience. It's everything you are.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, how do you just let that go? You know, and step into something new to say, all right, that's gone.
Right.
You know, where it's been because to this day, people here in Kentucky still recognize us as evangelists, preachers,
Right.
pastors. I see them on the streets all the time. Hey, Brother Hanshaw. I'm like, I'm not Brother Hanshaw.
And I've got to tell them I'm not that anymore. They're like, what?
Like, oh,
the funeral, the picture you're drawing of a funeral, of a death, it's really interesting too. The one side dynamic I would just add to that is that if we were going to a literal funeral, like when my dad passed about 2 years ago, when we went to the funeral, you know, everybody, of course, is very respectful. Oh,
Right.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Very somber, very, very loving, very gracious in that sense. No attacks. There's nothing. It'd be
Right.
totally inappropriate. It'd be like, you know, at a funeral or a wedding, you're going to, of course, be the most, you know, kind, loving, gracious person.
Right.
You're going to celebrate a wedding. You're going to grieve at a funeral. You're going to be a decent human about it.
Right.
But if you were to imagine a funeral where you're there, you know, as you were grieving the death of your father, you know, my dad's there in the casket, so to speak, and you're there doing your natural human grieving, and someone comes up to you and just starts berating the hell out of you, like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? This and that. Starts cussing at you. You'd be like, what are you doing? I'm grieving my dad's death. Like, what is wrong with you?
There'd be a fight. Right.
But when you leave Christianity, Christian's perspective is not to be respectful and say, you know, I'm really sorry for this or that. I know you're going through some hard stuff. Their response is to come up to you in front of your casket. And you could argue your heavenly father meant a lot more to you than your earthly father, because, you know, earthly father is only for whatever 50 years of your life. Your heavenly father's eternity. This is a much bigger death. And they're going to come up to you while you're at the casket, grieving and trying to be as healthy as you can, and say, they're just going to start punching the living daylights out of you. And you're like, what is going on? But they cannot see how absolutely awful their treatment is.
I want to say one thing right here.
That's a great analogy.
And I want to say this, because then I'm not being mean-spirited or and again, man, we talk about this a lot. I've been away from Christianity now for about 14 years. And I have not had one single solitary person ever reach out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Vaughn knows this, I touched a lot of people. And I'm not trying to sit there and brag and boast, but he knows.
Right.
And I think, you know, and I'm just saying this, I don't care at this point, don't bother me. If you have the love of God, like you're kind of saying there, if you have that love and if you love people, man, how do you show that? I mean, where's that at?
Right.
At least say, hey, Howard, how are you doing, man? Howard, how are you doing? How's the family? I mean, not nothing.
And my theory,
it's just, you know, you're like,
my theory on that is this. Now I'm going to get some of your Christians mad at me. Hello again. Now you're going to get Vaughn mad at you. Here we go. I love every one of y'all. You got to love me to go to your heaven too, by the way.
Oh, you ain't kidding.
You got to love me to go to your heaven. Right? So here we go. Your Jesus was a friend of sinners.
That's it.
Your Bible says that.
Yes, sir.
He didn't shun away from them. He didn't avoid them and ignore them and ostracize them and criticize them, put them down.
What did it say?
Berate them.
Yeah.
And all of that. That's a great analogy you gave to me.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Just exactly. I mean, he wasn't cruel.
No.
Only people he was mean with was the hypocrites.
The Pharisees. Yeah, the
Pharisees,
church
Sadducees, and all
people.
that. Church people. The sinners and the backsliders, I guess is what we're called now.
Yeah.
He loved them.
Yep.
The prodigal son story.
Yeah, buddy.
You know, where's my fatted calf and my ring?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. Where's
And
my
your robe?
robe?
Where's your robe at?
Where's my robe? You know.
That's true. Well, before we go into the last topic of healing from religious trauma, I do want to add just one more side aspect to the blood magic that I should have mentioned earlier, and it's the word scapegoating. And I know that it's when it makes me think of your story with your dad's switch, but there's something in us as humans. I'm not in any way talking about the Christian gospel or message here. I'm just saying there's something in humanity that wants a reset button, that wants to be able to say, I put my foot in my mouth and I'd like to take it back out now. I would like to hit the reset button. I'd like to, just like you might play Pac-Man or whatever. That was my, exposed my age there. Play Pac-Man now. Probably no one plays that. But when you're at the point where you're like, you died, you want to be able to hit the reset button and play again.
Right.
You want forgiveness. You want somebody to say, you slapped me on the cheek and I could punch you back Instead, I'm going to turn to the other cheek. We all long for this. And you don't need a pretend, Canaanite war god like Yahweh. You don't need a Greco-Roman Jewish mystery cult like Jesus. You don't need that to experience this desire or to actually live it for people. But your dad experienced something where he said, I made some awful mistakes. And whether he would attribute it to Jesus, which it sounds like he did, or someone else would say it was a different God, Allah changed my life, Krishna changed my life, Ganesh and Vishnu changed my life. Back in the day, it would have been Dionysius, changed my life, Apollo, Ra changed my life. People need something that says, my eyes got opened. Back in Plato's cave, I switched. I was in chains, looking at shadows, and I turned and I saw the light. I saw reality for the first time. I want to be free. I want to resurrect, so to speak. I want to have a second life in this life. I want to be a different person. I want to get off the bottle. I want to stop hurting people. And this idea of I can take my sins, I can put my hand on the goat, and I can transfer them to the goat. I can take my sins, I can transfer them to Jesus Christ through the cross that he died in his resurrection. We want to get our sins away from us as far as the east is from the west. We want to be able to be emptied of our bad stuff. Right. And Christians, as in my opinion, they prey, P-R-E-Y, they prey on that human instinct. We want to be able to be clean again. Right. And they make up this blood cult stuff. But talk about how that relates to being getting your identity back, where number one, you'd say, of course, there are ways where we can forgive each other. There are ways to hit the reset button and be a new person without a cult. But also the idea, though, that there's a really nasty side of scapegoating where you are implying to somebody that you're no longer responsible for what you did because you can just transfer it. Can you talk a little bit about that topic?
I'll say this, and this is just from my experiences. If you like mine, I'll let Vaughn answer his.
Yeah.
I think people in Christendom in general, because this has just been my experience in every church, every evangelistic tour I've ever done, any of this. Christians, again, hello Christians, if you're watching, I believe they use this as a crutch. Oh, I can live Monday through Saturday however I want, do what I want, be what I want, scapegoat on Sunday. Let me put my hands on that scapegoat. Then, oh my goodness, Yahweh Jesus Christ is gonna cleanse me. Reset button. Monday comes back, they're going to do whatever, go out and be whatever. And I used to tell people this. It ain't a sin, guys. It's called a lifestyle. And that's where Christians, me and Vaughn's talked about this a lot. When you no longer, a sin is an oops, right? It's something you didn't mean to do. It's something you did not intentionally mean to go out and do. But when you do that same sin week after week after week, day after day, it's called a lifestyle. And I think a lot of Christians that I've dealt with personally, I'm just talking about my ministry and in my life, they want to use that as a crutch to say, let me be what I want to be. Don't tell me, God, what to do until I get back on Sunday. Until I use that scapegoat again. Let me put my hand up there. Now you come hit that reset button and let me do what I want to do. You see what I'm saying? It used to baffle my mind.
And it reveals that there's no power in it. Like I know people that they listen to Christian radio hours a day, read their Bible in church. And they're some of the nastiest people I've ever met. It's like there is no power in the gospel.
Yes, I would sit and counsel people. Me and Vaughn have together, and guys that would have real struggles with pornography, with drinking, with smoking, drugs, and really had a struggle. And we would pray. It was we used to call pray through. We'd pray through. Now, would I consider that a sin or a lifestyle? Because on Sunday the hands was raised, shaking, glorifying God. Monday through Saturday, they were at the local brothels, out doing what they had to do and drinking and drunken up. And I'm thinking, you're not trying to change. You're using God as an scapegoat. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And I hate to tell that to the Christian people watching this, but I mean, God is no more than just hey, hit that switch, reset. I get to go back Monday when church is over. You see what I'm saying? It used to bother me because I'm like, you don't want to change. All you do is come in and put on an act on Sunday morning and Sunday night, acting like something that you're not being hypocritical, but you hit that reset button thinking everybody's changed. But no, come Monday, you're back doing the same old bunch of garbage. But yet you're a Christian? No.
I think this is how I'm going to answer that. And if I'm off here, you let me know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to understand your question. But where I'm at now with that question, the way I understand it, is whatever higher power you want to believe in, scapegoat, that'll
Right.
make your life better, then do it.
Yeah.
If you're on drugs, alcohol, if
Right.
you got anger management issues,
Yeah.
whatever higher power, or if you want to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
I don't care. Whatever you need to look at or look to or whatever, use that as, is that what you're asking, kindly?
Well, sort of, but I meant as well, just just the dynamic that we're not really correct in saying that scapegoating is appropriate as humans, because we are responsible for our actions.
Right.
And
I
just
think, did I answer it a little bit?
Yeah, no, that was good. I think what I'm getting at too is just the idea that the core messages of the Christian worldview, they include
Right.
the gospel and what it does to transform our lives and get us basically ready for the glories of heaven. We look at that and we're told as Christians, and we preach as Christians, this is power to change your life. And when you actually look at Christians' lives and your own heart and the dynamics, number one, it doesn't change people's lives. It does, and when it does, like when your dad's story, where it looks like something's changing, it begs the question, since the gospel is not real, and Jesus isn't real, then what changed? What is it that actually happened? Because it sounds like your dad did do a 180, but he pinned it on the gospel, and I'm sure he's proud of doing so. But something else was actually happening in his human nature that said, I am sick of my bad choices. I do have the ability, and again, he'd say it was through God and the gospel, but humans have the ability to say, I'm not thriving. I'm making very disturbing choices.
Right.
And something shakes you up enough to say, it's time for me to get healthy. It's time to put the cigarettes away.
Because I know of people in other religions that have similar conversion stories to their God, to their religion, to their gods.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've met them. So
yeah, the outsider test for faith. Exactly.
Right.
Well, could I ask just to wrap us up, that probably a question we can't do justice to in the time left, but healing from religious trauma. I want to ask about how you all did it and how you help other people that you come across that are going through it. You have a message of, you are broken. Nothing you do is good before God. God is angry at you. You are, as it were, sinners in the hands of an angry God, dangling over hell. Nothing you do is impressing God. The only thing that impresses him is his own son. You're broken, you're bad. By the time you're born, that's where you are. But then you do bad stuff. You looked twice at something you shouldn't have looked at. You smoked something, you drank something, you said something. You're making bad choices. So you're bad. And you finally get saved, and then the Holy Spirit's, convicting you. You're still doing bad. You just got these messages of you're bad, you're broken, and what you need most is a psychopathic, Yahweh character who would gladly send you to hell if you decide not to love him back. There's some really wacko stuff in that. I mean, whack job stuff. And people get out of it and they realize, you mentioned identity a couple times. How do you start to reclaim your identity and just to heal and just to thrive without a God? And whoever wants to start with that is you.
Go ahead, I'll start. Yeah, I'll go to you.
I'll be quite honest with you, Tim. I'm in the middle of that right now. I'm nowhere near the end of that. I don't know where the end of that is.
Right.
Now, meeting you, people like you,
right,
you're the first one I've met that's really interviewed me and him, and that's even taken an interest.
Yeah, I mean, period.
After your 14 years and my 4 years of departing from the faith, you're the only one, first one.
Right.
That's hopefully not the last.
Interest in hearing our story on a serious, respectful note.
Right.
And so that's all messed up my healing. Because what they've done, they've confirmed why I left. So that's all these Christians that's come at me arguing and demeaning and berating. They've just confirmed that they're hypocrites.
Right.
And that's why I left. It's one reason why I left. It's not the main reason, but it's one reason. So I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I don't know how you heal from this. I don't know where to go. What I would like to see happen is a group of us, former ministers, former Christians, whoever,
Yeah.
get together either on Facebook or somewhere. And I've looked, I can't find any groups like this. Maybe I hope they're out there. I don't know if they are or not. But and where we can exchange dialogue and communicate and
Right.
build each other up.
Like a support group.
Like a support group.
Yeah.
That would probably aid in our healing.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, just as you're speaking, and I'll share this with you shortly after we wrap up, but also I'll put it in the links beneath our video. I have, quite a few connections that I would say I'm proud to endorse of groups like that that do some of that. So I'll definitely share that with you. And I completely agree. We need community. Christians don't have the marketplace on community. Community is not a Christian healthy thing. That's just a human thing. Humans need community. Right. And I completely agree. We need these discussions. And I think just people, a lot of it's like normalizing. The word normalizing is, if you can have a bunch of other people that tell you, no, you're seeing it right. This God stuff is crazy, and you are absolutely right to have moved on.
Right.
But when you look at the question of healing and the question of thriving, like did you ever get the response from Christians or maybe just the structure in their arguments and stuff, like, if you walk away from this, there's nothing left. And they're like, you get the sense of you're in Christianity, you're in light, you're in goodness, you're in God's glory and power. You walk away, there's nothing left but darkness. And you even hear Christians, I've heard this say, if what you're saying is true and there's no God, if Yahweh's not real and the gospel's not true, yada yada. Yep. If that's not true, I don't know if I want to live. And it brings out the insidiousness of this message. It says, you not only need God, you need this whole worldview and this whole story to be true. And if it's not true, you might as well go end it, because there's nothing left. And it's like, it's so sick the way it sucks you in. And like, once you're out though, how do you start and say, at least not to say how do you get to the end of it, but how do you at least start and say, you know what, this simply wasn't true, and I can't thrive into that worldview. I'm going to, number one, take it away, which you've talked about. You've taken that away.
Right.
What do you start to bring in its place? Like what has to start to come in if you're pushing the bad stuff out the back door of the house, what has to come in the front door at the same time to make it a home?
I'll say this on my side of it, just for a brief second. I started this interview out like this after we kind of got through the introduction. And again, I've always said this in my mind. Once I stepped away, and I knew I stepped away fully, or I knew I was not going to return, I placed in my mind that I was involved in a cult. And I kind of had a firm stand that this was a cult. And I kind of, that sounds anything, but it helped me to heal, because I knew I was in a wrong place. I knew I was in a real bad situation. So the healing process right there was like, all right, who'd want to be involved in a cult in the first place? I mean, you see what I'm saying? So that kind of helped my mind to say, all right, we're not going to formalize any more opinions on why, what happened, why did you leave? Are you crazy? Are you nuts? Has your mind lost it? But I kind of formalized in my head to say, there's more to the outside of this looking back than there was when I was involved in it. That's right. There are other gods. There are other things involved in why I'm here besides the God of the Bible, the God I believed in, and stuff like that. So, to really generalize, if that's the right word, why the healing is, I think healing is so important, is because it kind of confirms, like Vaughn said, it confirms in our minds and in my heart especially, because I'm a very convicted person. I got to know. My heart's I've got to know that every decision I've made, especially when it comes to my faith, truthfully, to my faith and whatever I believe, has to be right. So that healing for me begins with me understanding that what I was involved in was completely wrong. I mean, utterly complete garbage. It was wrong.
Toxic.
It was just toxic. Good word. Mm-hmm. And, you're like, I can stand up. I get up every morning. Now I feel good. I feel happy. Here's the biggest word I'd like to convey in this video from me. I feel free. I feel free. I can get up and take a deep breath. I felt so condemned, so guilty, so sin-trodden when I was a Christian. And I felt bad. I felt like a bad human being. Now I get up free. I smile. I hug my kids. I kiss my wife. I feel like a good human being. I feel like I contribute. I don't feel like I'm a piece of trash underneath a God that is wanting to smash me under his thumb, so to speak. And
add to that one question. Do you find it freeing too, with the sense of being able to see how you see other people? Like before,
yes.
it was like,
Yes.
I gotta save you, I gotta save you, I gotta save you.
Thank you.
We can talk about football, we can talk about the weather, but let's get it to the gospel.
Right.
And now it's like, does that disappear for you?
I'm going to go on Vaughn because
Yeah.
I used to be, and Vaughn knows me. We were very hard preachers, man. I mean, very hardcore. We preached sin was sin, brother. Hell was hell. Heaven was heaven, and hell was hot. And I was so judgmental to where now I don't care if a homosexual walks in front of me, a transgender, a murderer. I mean, I don't have that same mindset because I love everybody.
Right.
We're all equal, man. I mean, everybody is on the same playing surface here, guys.
Right.
Who am I to sit and point fingers and everybody saying, look at me, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm special. Well, we're not special people. We're all down here for one purpose, man, to love each other.
Right.
I don't care if you're black, white, red, yellow. I love everybody. You know what I mean? It's like when I was a Christian, I had so many walls put up because I thought I was special. Look at me, man. Look at Howard Hanshaw. My God, I'm a preacher. And it's so
bogus.
It's ignorant. It's ridiculous, man. And if we could convey that message in this video, that it's just, again, it makes no difference on what you think you are. Our identity, because it don't make any difference, man. You got to love your brother, man. You got to love your brother. We're all the same. I mean, at the end of this, whatever this life is, whatever happens, Tim, after this is all said and done, we're all going to be somewhere. I don't know where that is yet. But, it's like, I mean, I feel good in what I've done. I really do. I feel very solid. I feel free, I guess is the best way. I feel free in my spirit.
And I've changed my worldview completely.
Yeah.
Based on what we're talking about. I no longer believe in heaven or hell.
No.
I no longer believe in forgiveness or turning the other cheek.
No.
I mean, none of that. I do believe in loving people.
Right.
But it's different. I no longer see them as targets of evangelism.
Right.
I see them as human beings.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah. One thing that I always like to end my interviews with is, I know I ask a lot of questions, but sometimes there's an extra topic on the table that I didn't get to. I didn't think so. I just wanted to end by saying, what did I miss? Was there anything else you wanted to add that we didn't touch on at all?
I would like to advertise my book.
Sure.
That I wrote, Why I Left Christianity. It's called Why I Divorced Christianity.
Right.
Fighting Christianity Unfit. It's on Amazon.com.
Yep.
Under Vaughn Hanshaw.
Great
Awesome.
read.
I'll put the link beneath our video for people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Howard, any final questions I didn't ask of you that you want to touch on?
No, man, you hit everything. As a matter of fact, and I greatly appreciate you doing what you did today, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
Likewise.
very much for having us on your
Yes,
show.
sir.
Sure. Well, I just want to add to that. I appreciate the passion you all bring to this. This will be my final word. I know we're getting close to the end here, so this will be my wrap up. But you all bring a passion to this that I think we need. A lot of people, they escape whatever verbiage we want to use. They escape. They get out. They move on. They deconvert. They deconstruct. They start to reconstruct their real identity, and they love the freedom, the peace that they have. But a lot of people, they do end up just saying, I'm done with religion. I'm so done that I just don't even think about it anymore. And some of us are very engaged in saying we want to take our knowledge, especially those of us who've memorized so much of it and been involved so much. We want to take our knowledge and put it out there for other people so we can leave the planet better than we found it, basically. But it's this idea of, I like to paint it as like it's a table of someone's worldview, and to say, Mr. So-and-so that's thinking about being a Christian, Mrs. So-and-so, you're thinking about, trusting Jesus as your savior. I want to put to you this table of why you should believe in Jesus or should not, or whatever. And so the preacher puts on, you're a sinner, you need the gospel, God's given us his word, please believe it. Here's the truth, and it preaches well. And just to say, here's the table, but there's this whole big space on the side of it next to the gospel and the Bible and the inerrant word of God stuff. And on this space, I'm going to add to it all this stuff that we talked about today, especially the stuff, but where did this stuff even come from? And to say, look, if you want to really believe in Jesus, that's fine. It's your choice. You have that freedom, but do it fully informed. Do it with the preacher's message. Listen to your sermons, but then say, where did this stuff come from? What is a Greco-Roman mystery cult? What was happening in Qumran with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and why does Jesus quote them so much?
Right.
Why did Jesus speak Aramaic, but these gospels are in Greek? Why are all these philosophers woven in? Why is the Gospel of Mark according to the Zodiac? Why does the Luke and Acts look like the Iliad and the Odyssey are rewritten? What is going on here? And just to say, here's the fullest information I can possibly give you. Now, with the full information, you do what you want. It's your life. It's your beliefs. And I feel so burdened for that. And I sense that coming through, that you all love to give people the fuller information that they weren't given, and say, I totally respect your end goal. Whatever you decide is totally yours. But I learned some things that I wasn't told. And I'm like a beggar who knows where to find the bread. I'm going to tell you, there's some better bread out there. If you want to take it, fine. But I'm not going to just hoard it. And I love that passion. I can see it coming through in your videos, which I'll have the links for beneath our video. And I want to say, finally, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Your voices are awesome in this.
Thank you, Tim.
Hope your platforms get bigger.
Thank you very much.